The Godfather Part II was released in 1974 as the biggest sequel in Hollywood. Continuing and beginning the mafia journeys of Michael and Vito Corleone, it was a box office smash, dominated the Oscars, and is now regarded by many as among the greatest movies of all time. My name's John, and with me ATRM's Johnny Ola and Fredo. That's Matt.
I don't feel I have to wipe everybody out, Tom. Just my enemies.
And Westy.
In my bedroom, where my wife sleeps and my children come to play with their toys.
We're in Gangland, New York to talk Coppola, corruption and the Corleones. If history has taught us anything, it's that you should keep your friends close, but all the right movies closer. Hello and welcome to All the Right Movies, a podcast bigger than US Steel on classic and hit films. This time round, it is a behemoth of an episode.
It is.
It really is.
Coppola, Pacino, De Niro, to mention just three huge names.
Yeah.
Westy, to mention four. We're getting into the Hollywood classic that is The Godfather Part II.
We are.
Before we start saying our Hail Marys, though, Westy might have started already, actually, but let's talk Patreon.
Yep.
So if you like what we do on this, our classic podcast, and want us to carry on with it, you can help support that by becoming an All the Right Movies patron. Patrons get access to bonus podcast episodes and access to our full archive of classic episodes just like the one you're listening to now.
Yep.
The archive's growing week on week, and there are many other big titles in there. The first Godfather film is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And from the same genre, Goodfellas, The Departed, Apocalypse Now from the same director,
Yep.
and lots of other classics. An offer you can't refuse there, surely.
Absolutely. Yeah. And with this episode as well, we're only covering Michael's story. So if you want Vito's backstory, you're going to have to sign up to Patreon.
Yeah, for the sequel.
For the sequel.
So to find out more and sign up, please visit patreon.com/all the right movies.
Yes, please do, guys. Really appreciate it.
But back to the business at hand, The Godfather Part II.
Mm-hmm.
So why are we talking about this one, Matt?
Because we're insane, we don't have enough stress in our lives, you know, throwing this one into the mix.
Yeah.
I don't think this film needs any justification, does it? It's the gold standard of sequels, a sequel to what was already one of the most critically lauded films of the 20th century, so Coppola's back, Pacino was at his peak. It's the true arrival of De Niro, and all that is just to begin with. And I think if we have any pretensions at saying we were a good movie podcast, we had to cover this one.
Well, my earliest memory of this film is watching it as a teenager and being blown away. Mm-hmm. Not by how good it was, by how long it was. 3 hours, 22 minutes.
Yeah.
2 DVDs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it is massive in every way, not just in length. Following a huge first film, enormous names in the cast, an epic story that spans generations and decades. A big director and Coppola in terms of stature and girth at this point. A massive production, and now a film with the biggest of legacies. I mean, we're talking about all of that and a whole lot more. So, like the movie, we might need an intermission or two.
Yeah.
Maybe several in this one.
Maybe.
And Westy, The Godfather Part II for you?
Yeah, very, very similar. I mean, when we started the podcast, we've always been saying we've got to do The Godfather Part II at some point. It was like, no, we're not ready. We're not ready this month. We're not ready. Are you going to put it up? No, I'm not putting it up yet. There's no way I'm putting myself through that. But it's just, I mean, it's incredible, isn't it? It's pretty close to perfect, I think. It's going to be really, really fun to talk about. Really hard to find any fault with it, apart from just sit here and sing its praises and talk about the behind-the-scenes stories, which is some amazing behind-the-scenes stories to go into. It all clicked for me on the first watch as well, John. I was a teenager and I remember watching it going, I've got it! I get it! I've got it from start to finish, and it's so long and so intricate, and it's like, right now I really love cinema. This is what it's all about. So, like Matt said, we couldn't call ourselves a film podcast without covering this film. So let's do it.
So, The Godfather Part II was produced by the Coppola Company in Paramount Pictures and released on December the 20th, 1974.
Happy Christmas.
Filmed in various locations, including New York, Sicily, and Cuba. It was directed by Francis Ford Coppola, written by Coppola and Mario Puzo, and stars Al Pacino as Michael Corleone, Robert De Niro as Vito Corleone, John Cazale as Fredo, Diane Keaton as Kay, Lee Strasberg as Hyman Roth, Robert Duvall as Tom Hagen, and a whole lot more. Big old cast.
Take a breath.
God almighty.
Let's go for it then, should we?
Yep.
Okay then, it's next stop Sicily and Lake Tahoe as we talk the beginning of The Godfather Part II.
Grazie.
The beginning.
Stylistically, The Godfather Part II picks up where its predecessor left off. Some huge and stunning visuals, and we've got some great scenes to talk about. The reintroduction to Michael Corleone at Lake Tahoe is coming, but before that, it's his pop, isn't it?
It is.
So the film starts with Vito Corleone as Coppola takes us from Sicily, Italy 1901 to Little Italy 1917. These sequences bring us the murder of 9-year-old Vito's family, his trip to the land of the free, becoming Robert De Niro, and his introduction to a life of crime.
Yeah.
Yep.
Some way to open a film. Or is it, Matt?
No, it is somewhere. I mean,
What do you mean, no? Oh, God, we're fucked up already.
Imagine Matt just slagged off the whole thing.
yeah, I can't stand it. Why is this
God,
one
it's so slow.
boring? Goes on for ages. No, I mean, well, it's a better introduction to an iconic character as a child than the one that Darth Vader got. Put it that way. So
Yeah,
it's already cleared above the Phantom Menace. We'll say that.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, this kid, like, what a great performance. No dialogue, does all the acting with his eyes. He's amazing.
Yeah.
And you watch and you think, yeah, you understand why Vito ended up the way that he did. His father and his brother were murdered. The funeral gets attacked for his dad. His mother then gets murdered in front of him. It all just...
The way she's shot as well just flies backwards.
Yeah.
Anyone killed with a shotgun in this film? Boom.
yeah, straight out of there.
Straight out there.
It just all puts in place, like, how important his character will later put on family. And to be that young, to know you're marked for death by the most powerful man in the region, but you also know the compassion of the people of the village who risk their own lives to keep you safe and to get you away. I think it really clearly introduces so many of Vito's defining characteristics because, yeah, he always goes after his enemies, but he does also have a strong, sentimental, compassionate streak, especially for his family. And this beginning just does a great job of humanising him. You know, when he arrives at New York, I like how he's not some brawling little thug. He's so thin and malnourished, you think, he's not going to last a week, let alone, like, 3 months, which is what his quarantine is.
It's like the only kid there as well, isn't he? When it cuts to the wide shot.
Yeah.
It's horrible, that.
It is. It's everything. Like, how is he going to survive? Even his name is an accent. So what I really love about this is it just undercuts the legend of the Don really effectively. And there's this little touch that when he arrives at Ellis Island, he gets marked with a circled X. And the inspectors did that if they believed an immigrant had a mental or physical defect.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fair to say Vito's definitely got a mental defect or two.
Yeah.
I think.
Incredible.
Several. But by going back to 1901, Coppola's saying we're going to tell you where it all began. And it didn't start with Michael. It started with Vito.
Yeah.
Quickly establishes this past v present conflict that runs through the film and is the structure of the narrative.
Yeah.
And have you noticed as well that when Vito's mother's pleading with Don Ciccio, she tells him Vito's weak and dumb-witted?
Yeah.
And then later, that's how Michael describes Fredo to Tom.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the difference being, of course, that Michael's telling the truth.
Yeah.
And that's Fredo's, you know, he's frail when he's a baby, he's ill when he's a baby.
Yeah.
You know, and he has pneumonia, and it's got a similar kind of tang to it.
Yeah. But Oreste Baldini, that's the actor, Matt, who plays 9-year-old Vito.
Right.
And I agree, he does well for what he has to do, but he has a hell of a time, young Vito, doesn't he?
Yeah.
His family getting blown away left and right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No wonder he turns into Marlon Brando. I'd go mental as well. But all the moments in Sicily look stunning. I mean, it's a stunning looking place. The opening wide shot of the funeral marching band, I love that. Beautiful.
Yeah.
And we get maybe my favourite shot in the film just after, when Vito's on Ellis Island looking out the window and we can see the Statue of Liberty reflected in the glass.
Yeah.
One of many.
Yeah, classic Coppola. That.
Yeah.
Yeah, classic Willis.
Yeah. And Westy?
I'm going to go for a bit later on when he's a bit more, you know, feet under the table. He's got the family, and Clemenza comes in on the scene and just basically says, I want to repay the favour of throwing guns over to you and you're hiding guns and you didn't look at them. And he's not exactly authentic, because he's not a very trustworthy guy, this
Definitely
Clemenza fella, and I love him. I think Kirby's just incredible in this. And the walk in is quite the palace, isn't it? And he's quite taken by it. But for me, if that's your favourite shot, your favourite shots of the film, John, this is mine, when Clemenza's standing there and that policeman's silhouetted against the door and he's got that gun, one false move and he's done for. And I think that sums up what Vito wants. He wants that power, but he doesn't want to be hidden behind it. He wants to be revealed. He wants people to know. He doesn't want to be a shadow. He wants people to see how powerful he is. And it's really, really good and a really excellent scene. And he's not scared to steal something because he feels like he's owed something.
Yeah.
And then you get his mentality that he'll give as long as he can receive. And that's his mentality all the way through the film, which is great. And I love the way it cuts to the street and they're carrying the rug and there's that music and it's all like quite comedy. It's really funny. And they're just walking up the stairs and everyone's looking at them. But then you've got Sonny there, and he's just celebrating the fact that they've got this thing, and it fits perfectly in the room, and he's sat on it. But Sonny fucking hates that rug. Like, he hates everything else throughout the whole first film and second film. So it really shows Sonny's personality. Where he's like, I don't even like wealth. I don't even like anything. You know?
Don't even like rugs.
Yeah, don't like rugs. Don't like comfort on me arse. It's like, I deal with it. Sums up Vito and Clemenza's relationship and their trust really well. It's brilliant. It's just so watchable. Fantastic stuff.
Yeah, I still can't quite believe that Bruno Kirby's in The Godfather Part 2 whenever I see it.
I know.
Yeah. I mean, I prefer him in City Slickers, but he's really, really good in this.
No, he is good. He is good.
Yeah,
he wore a fat suit for the part as well.
Right.
Like Eddie Murphy.
When he's eating that spaghetti.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you Professor the Clumps, isn't it, when he's eating that?
Yeah, he's a right chancer, Clemenza, isn't he?
Yeah.
That's great, though. They all are. That's the whole point.
Imagine your neighbour turning up at your house with a load of guns to look after, and then repays you by pinching someone's rug and makes you do it with them. Unbelievable.
Doesn't just turn up with it. Yeah, that's the favour return. Brilliant.
But introduces Vito and us to his future life of crime. I think it shows him how easy it is to get away with it if you've got your wits about you.
Yeah.
I mean, even Clemenza gets away with it, and he's a right gobshite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one thing I know about these flashback sequences, originally all the actors had zippers on the trousers. But one of the musicians that Coppola had on set was a historian of Little Italy, and he actually went up to Coppola and said, well, look, zippers weren't invented back then, so they then had to reshoot some scenes with button trousers instead.
Musician's amazing. He should be in the costume department. I would have promoted him immediately. Well, not promoted him, I would have moved him.
Yeah.
You're in a different department, mate.
Yeah.
Check this out.
Also, do you know the play that we say that Vito goes to with Genco Abendando?
Yeah.
That's a real musical called Senza Mama, written by a guy called Francesco Pinino. That was Coppola's grandfather.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Really?
Yeah. Loves getting his family in there, doesn't he? Coppola
Loves the family connection, like.
He's like Vito.
Yeah. Everyone in his family is now famous.
Even Nick Cage.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the start of Vito's life in America. What a character. Eh?
Oh, yeah.
Great character. You just can't wait to see more of where this is going, really.
From meeting Vito, Coppola throws us forward to 1958 to catch up with Vito's son and successor, Michael Corleone.
Yeah.
In the scenes at Lake Tahoe, we see Michael's son Anthony's first Holy Communion, Senator Geary getting way above his station, and an attempt on Michael's life.
Yeah.
How's this one go, Matt?
Not too well for Geary in the long term, but this is like one of the best examples how this film plays as a mirror to the first one. Because this scene with Geary is very similar to Vito in the first film, Receiving Visitors. But it couldn't be more different, because in the first, everyone turning up to the Don's office shows him so much deference, so much respect. None of that whatsoever from Geary. I'm a blunt man. I intend to speak plainly to you. No one would have said that to Vito. And it's not because Michael's weak, it's because times have changed. And for Geary to sit there and to say he doesn't want to spend any more time there than he has to, I intend to squeeze you, I don't like your kind of people. He mocks his surname. He swears in front of him. I mean, I don't think anyone would have said fucking in front of Vito and gotten away with it. And in the first one, people are turning up to ask Vito for favours. Geary is turning up to make demands. So it's a very different time we're operating in. Things have changed for the Corleones, apart from Michael. Michael still has balls of steel in his ice cool. You know, my offer is this, nothing. Send some packing. Brilliant.
Yeah, it's a superb way to ease us back into the world of the Corleones. It does echo, like you say, Matt, intentionally, obviously, the intro to Vito in the first film, holding shady business meetings behind closed doors at a big family celebration. But there's a difference in the characters as well, whereas Vito's fiery and emotional in the first film, Michael's far from it. He's cold. He's really menacing. His line, my offer is this, nothing. Hilarious, that. Brilliant. I've been waiting to say that to someone for 25 years. But I think it sets up Senator Geary well too. He plays a part later on. For the first time we see him outside, he's with his wife. She's dressed up all in like a pink dress suit, which is a nod to Jackie Kennedy, surely.
Yeah.
Which I guess means they're setting Geary up as a John Kennedy type figure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a kinky sod like Kennedy, but has none of JFK's charm.
No.
Has no idea what he's getting himself into either. When he's on the stage reading out the name on the check and he's like, Anthony Vito Corleone.
Yeah.
He'll have you killed, Geary. He doesn't care. He's not bothered. He'll kill you. Also, tell you what's great, Pentangeli in there trying and failing to get the band going when he's like, bum, ba bum, ba bum, ba bum, ba bum, ba bum. Absolutely brilliant.
Pop Goes the Weasel, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Pop Goes the Weasel.
But it's all brilliant. Very familiar, hilarious, and I love it as an intro back into the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. J.D. Spradlin, who played Senator Geary, came up with a lot of his own dialogue as well, a lot of his own lines, which
Right.
allowed him to do, especially even like the Italian bashing and that type of thing. But and putting them down was his idea, and I think he absolutely nails it with aplomb. It's fantastic.
He is very good.
The bit that gets me in this sequence, though, is that assassination attempt. Whoa,
Yeah.
what a sequence. It's so
Massive.
memorable, and what a gut punch, but it's just cinema at its very, very best. You know, there's that little drawing of him in the back of the car. And I haven't done every single scene, and it always sits in my head. But all I remember is when he's driving to Roth, why is Michael driving? His bodyguard's in the back of the car. He's never in the back of the car after that, I don't think.
No.
And his son puts him in the back of the car, and he just doesn't really want to have that image. He doesn't want that to be, do you like it, yes or no? And that's a big thing. And then he turns around, and he's talking to Kay, and there's that thunder crack just in the background as he turns around. And she comes in, why are the drapes open? And he looks around again. And then that opens questions in my mind as well. So somebody inside has actually opened the drapes, got access to his room. This is going deeper than it should do. And then them gunshots go off. It's amazing how quick he disappears out that frame. Vroom, he's just down.
Yeah.
But the thing that really echoes with me is his scenes when he's crawling back to Kay and he gets shot in the mirror. It's like a reflection of him, who he thinks he is, actually gets shot and gunned down as he's on the floor. And it's just the sound design in the sequence as well. Them gunshots are just so powerful. It's such a good punch, and you wake up immediately, and you're just like, you feel threatened, they feel threatened, and he's so angry. I want them alive. Fucking
Alive, Rocco!
Alive! Just amazing. So, all right, and Rocco's like, all right, he's running away from Michael as opposed to running towards the problem. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Incredible sequence.
It is, it's excellent. But there is quite a lot that's unexplained. Like, who killed the guys who tried to shoot Michael?
Well, you don't know, do you? So there's somebody inside, but they were found not far from Fredo's bedroom.
Yeah.
And Fredo's, the girl he was with starts screaming and just uncontrollably as if he wasn't there, and she's been left alone. So you don't know.
Well, that's it. And who did leave the drapes open? Because if it was Fredo, that means that later on, Fredo's lying out of his backside when he says to Michael that he doesn't know it was going to be a hit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll get onto that later because I've got a bit of an idea about that.
I know he's an idiot, but even Fredo would know why they wanted the curtains left open. Surely.
Yeah.
And we're through the first act of The Godfather Part II, and a lot to chew on so far. Intros to Vito, and Michael, and we're already intrigued to see where it goes.
Oh, definitely.
Absolutely. Try turning it off at this point.
Yeah.
Impossible.
The director.
The director of The Godfather Part II was, of course, Francis Ford Coppola. Returning from the first film, he had also directed another feature in the meantime, the critically acclaimed The Conversation.
Yeah.
Here, though, Coppola's sequel, big expectations set by the first film. How did he do as director, Westy?
I mean, it's a Coppola film, isn't it? It's through and through. I think it's fantastic work. And what a return to form from it's like The Conversation's almost like taking a breath and having to relax and then coming back to this. Like, it's so big. And he's got to fill his own shoes again, and just the gusto to be able to come back and do that. But I think what he does here is he makes it very, very personal. Like we've said, it's another family story. It's an ascent from one, and it's a descent to the other. It's the ascent of Vito to the descent of Michael in tandem. So it's just to show how important it's family. And then how you try and suffocate your family and then lose everybody. And I think that's something that's very personal to Coppola. And I don't think anyone else could have written it or directed it the way he does. And the thing that strikes me more about what he does in this film is he makes the violence, it's not as visceral, it's more personal, it's more psychological, it's more about betrayal than it is about business.
Yeah.
You know, it's about Fredo and the assassination attempts and Peter and the death of the bodyguard in the hospital even. You feel that as like a personal kind of beat because he's been with you all the way. And it's the pacing as well, it's the transitions, it's the choice of music and when he puts that in and when he doesn't. The framing with and working again with Gordon Willis. It's just a dream team for me. Absolute marvel from start to finish. The colour palette, like, I don't know, there's nothing I can say bad about it. It's just all on him and it's all his outlook and all his writing as well as Puzo's. But it's you know, it's very much a Coppola film.
Yeah.
If anyone's going to say what's a Francis Ford Coppola film, I'd have to say this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, what can you say?
I mean, I tried.
I mean, coming back from the huge success and acclaim of the first film, and Coppola does rise to the challenge, and that's no easy task. I mean, Marlon Brando's gone, James Caan's gone, some of the key sources of conflict from the first film are gone in Sollozzo, McCluskey, Mo Green and Carlo, and I wouldn't say we don't miss them all this time round. I mean, how could you not? But Coppola makes us miss them less than we could ever reasonably expect to. And I think there's several ways that he does that. I think the tone is handled masterfully. Takes itself seriously, but Coppola justifies it with such a high level of filmmaking. That tone is obviously a carryover from the first film, but what's different this time round are the more diverse locations. New York, Little Italy, Sicily, Havana, all with distinct looks, but all have this like real artistic elegance, which is really impressive.
He doesn't spread the tone too thin either. It's like he's got enough paint to cover New York City and paint it with that tone, and he's got enough.
Yeah, exactly. And the big moments, I mean, they're huge in the first film, like Sonny's death and the restaurant scene, among others. No easy feat matching those. But again, Coppola manages it. Much of it revolves around Fredo, and we'll get to that stuff. But suffice to say for now, the big moments here are about as big as any in movies, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the transitions between the time periods are like... Coppola loves a really slow cross dissolve, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does.
Coppola.
He does. That came from test screenings, though, because it was more of a quicker cut between them. And he slowed the transitions down so the audience understood that they were going between the two storylines.
Oh, okay.
Right. Definitely works for the best, I think.
And I think he's taken it from this and applied it to fucking everything else. Oh, is that what they want? Is it? Right, fucking have that.
But yeah, massive expectations on Coppola. He's done well coming anywhere near close to the first film, but for lots of people, and for me in some ways, to think that he tops it with this film, that's some achievement.
Yeah, absolutely.
For me, it's how he doesn't just repeat the first film and uses this one to reflect on part one. That impresses me the most, because to take that first film, which is dark and it is violent, but for the most part it plays out as a kind of a straightforward thriller. Then he makes the sequel so melancholic and everyone on a downward spiral. You know, Michael is losing his soul, Fredo betrays the family, Kay leaves the family, Connie is on drugs, all the old allies have either died or they're betraying Michael. It does have this epic, tragic sweep to it all, which is helped by the fact that I think he just shoots it so classically. Like, the experimental side of Coppola, he leaves that for Apocalypse Now in the conversation. This is shot like classic Hollywood. But the reason it doesn't become too much of a downer is, I think, how he balances it against the scenes of young Vito, which are arguably just as dark in their own way, but they've got a certain likeness to them because...
They're successful.
Successful, yeah, well, that's it. It's exactly it. You know, a young orphan pulling himself out of the gutter to make something of himself and lead his community. It's the American dream, writ large.
Yeah.
And there's the irony that it's the American dream shown through the filter of the beginning of a crime empire. But even so, Coppola still makes it feel inspiring. You feel glad for young Vito. Like that last shot of him with his family, and he's killed Fanucci and he's on top of the world. You think, that's brilliant. What a brilliant way to leave him. Yeah. And then that just adds to the tragedy of contrasting that with how Michael ends up. You know, look at that last shot of Vito and then contrast that to the last shot of Michael, completely alone, just with his thoughts and nothing else. I think it's remarkably well done by Coppola.
Well, Coppola had a torrid time making the first film. We talked about that on our Godfather episode, didn't we?
Yeah.
So
we did, yeah.
Check that out. But because of that, he didn't want to do the sequel at first, and he actually recommended another director to Paramount.
Okay.
Do you know who it was?
Scorsese, wasn't it?
Martin Scorsese.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know it was you, Fredo, with Gimme Shelter in the background. Bob Dylan in there.
Yeah, Gangs of Sicily.
This was pre-Taxi Driver, so the studio said no chance to Scorsese.
Yeah.
So Coppola said they would only make the sequel if certain conditions were met. He said he wanted the script for The Conversation to be greenlit with him directing.
Yeah.
He wanted to be given the gig of writing the movie adaptation of The Great Gatsby. And he wanted to direct a production for the San Francisco Opera.
Right.
Wow.
Imagine a Coppola opera. Self-indulgent. Everyone on coke.
Yeah. I've seen his granddads.
Yeah, exactly.
And people just left.
But he did get all three conditions. Paramount wanted them that badly.
I mean, them conditions, that's just loads more work.
I know.
I would just
he's a maniac.
Can I have 6 months off?
Yeah.
10 million quid. And don't speak to us for 5 years. And there's two people who didn't return from the first film were the Paramount producers Robert Evans and Albert S. Ruddy. Depending on who you believe, they didn't come back either because they chose not to, or because Coppola also had a condition that they wouldn't come back as he didn't like working with them at all on the first film. I've heard that about Evans.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. I mean, he's a character. Evans isn't he? To say
Doesn't
the
he
least.
just? Yeah.
But how satisfying must that have been for Coppola? Pulled the bits on the first film, and this time round, calling all the shots.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a condition I can get round to. Don't get them bastards back in. Let us do it myself.
But Coppola had also asked for $1 million to direct. It was a bluff because that was a huge amount for a director then, and he was kind of hoping Paramount would say no, but they agreed without hesitation.
Imagine that.
Swimming in money.
Yeah.
Should have asked for 2.
It's like that pool shot in Trainspotting when he's like, oh, for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
Goes in.
To finish off on FFC, we have our first Patreon question.
Yep.
So one benefit of lots of being in All the Right Movies Patreon is we'll answer your questions on the show, and Benjamin Rogers has one right now.
Okay, hello, Benjamin.
Well, Benjamin.
So Benjamin is keeping it simple but effective.
Mm-hmm.
Which movie do you prefer, The Godfather or The Godfather Part II? I thought about throwing The Godfather Part 3 into the mix as well, but realised that wouldn't change anybody's answer.
No,
in the slightest.
Not in the slightest.
So, Matt, which are you going for? 1 or 2? Or 3, if you like.
Well, controversially, I think Andy Garcia really elevates that third one, and Sophia's not as bad as people... No, she is as bad as people say she is. She's absolutely dreadful. No, it's a tricky question because they're so different tonally, and I've always said, I think you can say something is the best, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's also my favourite out of the two. So for me, Part 1 is the one I go back to the most. That is my favourite because it's just got a little bit more humour to it. Part 2 is so cold and so melancholic. First one's is easy to get into, and I do miss Sonny. And this Sonny is my favourite character across the trilogy. So that's really the difference between the two. Why Part 1 is my favourite.
Yeah, good reason.
Mm-hmm.
Well, answering this question, I was thinking Godfather Part 2 is regarded by most as better, I think, isn't it?
I think so.
I wasn't sure though, so I put a poll up on our Twitter followers asking which Godfather film is their favourite.
So you've copped out then. You've coupled it out.
Loads of conditions. So, and it was actually The Godfather Part 1 came out on top.
Right.
52% of the votes. The Part 2 was 45%.
Okay.
Part 3 got 3%. Who was
Wow,
voting for that? I don't know.
Fucking hell.
3
no
more
idea.
than I thought it would do.
So it is very close generally, and it's very close for me as well. But when I'm answering a question like this, I always think creatively, which one would I have rather made? And from that point of view, to be honest, it's not close. It's the first one for me.
Right.
That's the one where it all started. That's where the world was created, the rules were created, the characters were all created. Yeah. That's the one that reinvented the genre. Part 2 may outdo Part 1 in some ways. It probably does. I mean, De Niro in a dynamite edition, obviously.
Yeah.
But any great sequel is usually playing catch-up on a great first film because there was usually so much more created for the first film. And that's why the first one is my favourite of the two.
Yeah.
And Westy?
Oh, I mean, it's that classic question, isn't it? That it's really hard to answer. With your opinion, you've got to be a bit more technical about it and just say, well, without the first one, you wouldn't have the second one. That's just fact. So the second one wouldn't exist without the first one. So there you go. But for me, I see it this way. It's like two paintings in the fucking Louvre. You've got the first one and you go, I love that. That's really good. But it's precise. It knows exactly what it is. This one is a panorama. It's a panoramic shot. It's longer. It's got more to it. It's like a tapestry. It's an extension of the first one. So without that first painting, then you kind of extend it into a tapestry. The first one is a better film. The second one's my favourite because I prefer something with a bit more depth to it. So that's my answer.
Very nice. I do like how you said the fucking Louvre there.
That fucking place.
Yeah, that's the official title. I'm fucking sick of going, to be honest.
The Mona fucking Lisa.
Mona fucking Smile, man. Oh, she is.
Well, The Godfather Part II won Best Picture at the Oscars, and also Coppola took home Best Director.
Yeah.
It was the first sequel to ever win Best Picture, and that's only been done once since. Do you know what other sequel won Best Picture?
Lord of the Rings, Return of the King.
Correct.
Yes! Fredo taking the ring to Mount Doom. Off, not
Fredo Baggins.
Yeah. You broke my heart, Sam.
So, big expectations after the first film. Sounds like we agree, though. Coppola lived up to them, and for some, surpassed the first film.
Yeah, and then some.
Yeah.
The cast.
The cast of The Godfather Part II, with star names all across the board, it's widely regarded as one of the greatest cast lists ever assembled, and we're going to talk in detail about the two leads.
Yeah.
That's Robert De Niro as Vito Corleone, and we're starting with Al Pacino as Godfather Jr., Michael Corleone.
Yeah, we are.
Al Pacino is Michael Corleone, the anti-hero of the first film. He's back here for more. We follow Michael from an attempt on his life through a congressional investigation into his criminal dealings to Michael taking care of business.
Yeah.
TCB. How's Mikey this time round, Matt? And Al Pacino playing him?
Well, I mean, he was pretty good first time round, and
Yep.
I do think he somehow manages to top that work here. I think the difference for me is startling, like even the physicality of Michael. There's something vampiric about him, just to look at him here, you know, the way his hair slicked back, how gaunt he looks, the fact that 90% of the film he's shot in shadow, he's barely in the daylight.
He's like a gothic narcissistic quiche, isn't he?
That was going to be the next thing I was going to say, so yes.
I had that as well, actually.
It's just such a contrast to the first film, you know, where he's got so much like brightness in his eyes and he's so handsome. In here, like all that brightness is gone because his soul is gone and he's on constant guard. And the only time he can really relax is around Kate. And that moment when he finds his son is drawing a picture of them together, I find that really affecting because it's the one moment where he stops being the Godfather and he's just Michael, he's just Dad, and he can so rarely do that. And this is obviously way before Pacino started doing all this like hoo-ha nonsense. And he's so effective when he's quiet. Like, he raises his voice very rarely. But when he does, it's absolutely startling.
Yeah.
But those moments when he stays quiet and he underplays something, it's absolutely chilling. You know, when he tells Kiwi his offer is nothing. When he lies to Roth that he's going to kill Pentangeli to gauge his reaction. And his eyes are just flickering and taking in Roth's reaction.
Yeah.
But it's when Kay tells him that she's had an abortion. Oh, I've never been so scared of a character's silence than I am with Michael's. Then you can just feel the fury building behind the eyes. So yeah, as good as he was in part one, he's somehow even better here. He's absolutely remarkable.
Yeah, 70s Pacino. This is the Pacino I like, where he's reserved and not chewing the scenery every 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Because it does mean, you mentioned it, when he does lose his cool, those moments are massive. Like in that big scene when Kate tells Michael she's leaving. I mean, it's not just Pacino, Diane Keaton. I mean, what an actress she is.
She's amazing,
Yeah, unbelievable.
But the scene shows how much they've grown apart. Kay is still just like a normal young woman, really, and Keaton plays her that way really well. Michael is like a frothing at the mouth, rabid psychopath.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When Kay does tell him he's had an abortion, he looks like he's going to blow up. There's like steam coming out of his ears.
Yeah.
But I like the writing of Michael too. By this point, Michael's like this master manipulator. He's always in control. Like when he goes to Roth and says Pentangeli tried to have him killed, then he goes to Pentangeli's and says Roth tried to have him killed.
Yeah.
And then when they try to kill Pentangeli, the guy says Michael Corleone says hello.
Yeah.
I mean, we've no idea at that point what the truth actually is. So Michael doesn't just control the characters, he controls us, the audience too.
Yeah.
Really clever way to show how good he is at manipulating situations. And Pacino just delivers all of it expertly. Michael Corleone and Sonny in Dog Day Afternoon, they're Pacino's best performances for me, and this is him at his very best.
Yeah. That line, Michael Corleone says hello when he strangles Pentangeli, that's ad-libbed.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's right, it was,
It ad-libbed, and he didn't know why he said it, and Coppola heard it and went, I like that, I'm keeping that in, do it again. He did another couple of takes and kept it in. Right. And the reason I'm bringing that up here is Pacino doesn't make that confusing. He makes you think, did it? What?
Yeah.
Did he? Because he's capable of anything.
Yeah.
His descent here into utter self-absorbed hatred, but at the same time he's disguising that hatred with this love in inverted commas of his family, this protection in inverted commas of his family, which gives him excuse to kill. It gives him excuse to spread his kind of darkness that he's got. And when he just, anytime he sits and just puts one leg over the other and then raises his hand in his mouth, I just think, fucking hell.
Yeah.
It's just,
I'm out of here.
I'm going to get bollocked here. And that's just the way, it's his body language, the way he drops his head and he kind of does the Kubrick stare just off the lens, though not into it.
Yeah.
It's just this really menacing, really powerful, really intense performance, and I think it's that good of a performance from Pacino that if he did nothing else after this, you would still watch this and go, that is a master of his craft at this time.
Yeah.
And it's fucking timeless and absolutely 100% gut-wrenchingly brilliant. I cannot say much more about it than you guys have already said, to be fair. It's just so powerful, amazing.
I don't know if you can tell, though, but he wasn't totally happy with the filming, because when he read the script, initially he wasn't impressed and said he just wasn't coming to filming.
He doesn't look impressed throughout the whole film.
Well, that's it, yeah. He just feeds on his performance, constantly pissed off at everyone.
Real footage.
Yeah, real footage.
So Coppola had to rewrite a lot of Michael's character in one night to get the Pacino's satisfaction, but they then had an argument over the pace of the shoot, because apparently Coppola worked really slowly. And apparently at one point Pacino just blew his top and yelled, Serpico only took 19 days.
He was a dick as well, the Coppola, because he rewrote the whole film over 2 days, over a weekend, and then he said to him, I didn't think it was that bad, I just thought it could be better.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, apparently filming was actually halted and delayed because Pacino came down with pneumonia at one point.
Wow, right.
Wasn't moaning about slow filming then, was he?
No, of course he wasn't.
Yeah. Coppola should have wheeled him in his bed like Vito in the hospital. 19 days. For his performance as Michael, Al Pacino was nominated for Best Actor at the Oscars, but lost out to...
Go on, Matt.
Oh, bloody hell. Mid-70s. It's not Nicholson, because I was cooking this. I'd say I don't know this one.
It was Art Carney for Harry and Tonto.
Silence.
Genuinely, who?
So that performance has been pretty forgotten, I think. Pacino, though, far from it, as Michael Corleone.
I say it's pinnacle, isn't it?
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
From the son, we're now looking at the father. That's Robert De Niro as Vito Corleone. A new addition to the cast, we follow Vito from arriving in Little Italy through making a name for himself, murder, and eventually establishing himself as the Don. The big cheese.
The big man.
Huge boots to fill for De Niro and taking over from Marlon Brando, like clown shoes in more ways than one. How does Bobby do as the original gangster, Westy?
Well, they seem to fit somehow. I don't know what size he is. He's been at Clark's for a measurement, but it works on every conceivable level. I mean, how much of an authentic performance is this?
Yeah.
It's so fucking amazing. Like, is that even Robert De Niro? You know, even when he's got the tash, you just go, that's incredibly measured. It took him months to decide on that. He's in the film for about, 47 minutes, something like that. The lengths that he goes to just be this character and celebrate what Brando could have been or was as a character and what he brought to that. The voice, when his voice comes in a little bit, and it doesn't feel like a pastiche, you know, and his body language and the way he sits and the way he looks and the way he's concerned and everything else. I mean, it feels like you could, the camera's on him, okay, and it feels like you could turn the camera away from. And if you're the cameraman, you could point the camera down the street and turn around and look at him, and he'd still be acting. He'd still be that character. He'd still be looking at oranges, just being like, looking in. And you'd be like, Bob, the camera's not on you anymore, and he's just not bothered. He's just absorbed in it. It's like he's just been laminated in this character, and that's what you get from it. I mean, the physicality of it, the line delivery, the believability that this could be Brando. I mean, they are, like you said, John, big shoes to fill. And, you know, like I reiterated at the start there, he does fill them with aplomb without putting on thick socks. It's absolutely unbelievable.
Well, exactly. Coming in to replace Brando, a total legend at this time. And De Niro's a young actor as well. And he does fill Brando's shoes.
Yeah. I mean, what's he done before this? Mean Streets. Come on.
Yeah, that was it, yeah.
That was it.
Pretty much. I mean, to the point where I don't think we miss Brando all that much.
No.
De Niro doesn't look like Brando, but at his best, like he is here, I think he has a presence to match him.
Yeah.
And I mean, you mentioned it, Westy, he does only get 46 minutes on the screen, De Niro. Yeah, but the scenes with Vito provide most of the highlights of the film, for me.
Yeah.
We'll talk about them as we go, but the way that he manages his voice to grow more and more hoarse, like older Vito as we go through the film, I love that.
Yeah.
And the scene where he's eating pasta with Clemenza and they're discussing what to do about Finucci, and Vito just takes control of the situation. Takes control of the situation forever, basically. I totally buy that as a key moment in their relationship.
I love the way he serves himself last as well when they're at the table. Yeah. Just little touches like that. Just
says nothing to his wife at all.
He takes it off her. He keeps her out of everything. He doesn't tell her about the guns at the start. Nothing.
Exactly, yeah.
None of your fucking business.
But one of my favourite De Niro performances, never raises his voice, but he's still absolute fire on the screen.
100%, yeah.
And even pulls off the little pencil tash that Vito has.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Yes, he does.
Great. I don't know how he does anything.
I think he's really like Pacino in that it's really understated and it's really quiet and it's all the better for it. There's no yelling, there's no shouting, there's no outrageous threats that he gives out to anyone. It's just this quiet, understated belief in himself as the character. And De Niro brings a real smartness to this performance. So many scenes where it's clear Vito is just watching, taking things in, getting the measure of Finucci, biding his time when to strike at him, though. It's all in his eyes and it's all in his poise, the way he holds himself. And a key scene for me is when he gets fired from that job because of Finucci says he wants him out, but he doesn't overreact about it. He understands why his boss has to do that. Yeah. And he means what he says when he says, I'm thankful to you and I will remember you. And he does.
Yeah. He doesn't take the basket of, I don't need that.
Doesn't.
Yeah, I don't need that shit. Yeah.
There's like this real virtue to him. He's like a real low-key gentleman, and he's not like Sonny. He's not all bluster. He doesn't have this hair-trigger temper. He truly loves his family. And for a fact, this Vito, he doesn't have loads of women on the go at the side. It's all about his family. He's not at all what you might expect a young Vito to be like, but De Niro's so good that despite the fact, like you say, John, he doesn't really look like Brando, by the end you go, well, of course, that's Vito Corleone. Who else could that be?
Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, the brilliance about that character and the way it's written as well is that he's got all of his son's traits as he grows up. I mean, he starts as Fredo, he starts weak. Then he turns into Michael and he's calculated and he's polite. Yeah. And then he turns into Sonny when he explodes and has to kill somebody. Yeah. So he's got all of these traits. Yeah. It's fantastic.
It's brilliant.
Yeah, there's so much character detail in there in the writing. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But, De Niro just takes that on and not a problem.
Yep.
But also Coppola at first considered bringing Brando back to play young Vito because he thought Brando could play at any age. Howie, man. I mean, he was good, but he's not. It's not a magic wand. It's just a camera. But you remember De Niro had auditioned for The Godfather as Sonny, and that audition is on YouTube, and it's absolutely incredible. It's on the special features of The Godfather as well, and he's unbelievable in that. Yeah. So he cast him without even talking to Brando, without even considering it any further, which, the rest is history.
Yeah. Yeah, Brando can play any age. Should have gone in there as 9-year-old Vito as well then.
Imagine that.
Shoes on his knees.
Yeah. X on his massive chin sticking out.
I mean, I'm sure De Niro probably learned his lines as well without other cast members having to hold them up. Yeah. Brando.
Yeah, exactly. I think De Niro learned everyone's lines in the whole film.
Yeah, because the thing is, obviously, as you'd expect, De Niro went method. So before filming, he moved to Sicily for 3 months to learn the language and the dialect. And in the finished film, he only has 17 words of English. Everything else is in that dialect, which is incredible. Wow. Yeah. And then to start looking a bit like Brando in the later scenes, he put on weight and he wore a smaller version, the mouthpiece that Brando had in the first film. He wore one of those. And he was unsure about the tash, so he actually left it to the flip of a coin, which came down yes.
And then pulls it off. Yeah, on the flip of a coin, it still works.
Yeah.
It's when he goes back to Sicily, it's the assassination, isn't it? When he has that mouthpiece in.
Yes,
that's right. The weight on.
Yeah,
you can tell there. You can tell. Great, that bit.
Yeah. If in doubt, always get the tash in there. Obviously, it'll be funny if nothing
else. Terrible advice. That don't listen to that. Don't take that advice, listeners. Only do it if you're Robert De Niro in the 70s. Anyone else, fucking forget about it.
Well, before ending on De Niro, we have our second Patreon question. This time from Carl Stillman.
Hello, Carl.
Like Benjamin, Carl's keeping it simple but effective by asking, who portrayed Vito better, Marlon or Robert? So, Westy, Brando or De Niro?
De Niro because you forget it's De Niro. When you're watching Brando, you remember it's Brando. That's the shortest answer I'm ever going to give to any question. But that's my thought on it.
Right, nice. I mean, this one is tough. Like the first one. You've got two Hollywood legends, both top of their game. And when you're talking this kind of level, I mean, there's no wrong answer, is there? I don't think. No. I would say I probably prefer watching Vito in Part 2 than Part 1 because he's got a more exciting personal story and there's a character with more growth in Part 2. However, the question was who portrayed Vito better. So just because I think he's more iconic in the role, I would say Brando. I think just the sight of Brando as Vito in the tux, stroking that cat, talking like he's got marbles in his mouth. Yeah. It's Hollywood history.
It is.
But De Niro is obviously brilliant as well.
I'm going to say De Niro because I think Brando portrayed the Godfather. I don't think we really see Vito in that film, whereas here we truly see Vito before he is the Godfather, and I think that's a key difference for me.
Always with the clever answers, Matt, isn't he?
Yeah, I thought about this one.
The cute answers.
I'll get round it somehow. Yeah. I think Brando portrays the legend, De Niro portrays the man.
Yeah. Lovely. Keep working on yours, Westy.
For playing Vito Corleone, Robert De Niro was nominated for and won Best Supporting Actor at the Oscars, his first Oscar win. Yeah. Also, after Brando had won Best Actor 2 years earlier, this was the first time two actors had won Oscars for playing the same character.
Yeah.
But it has happened again twice since. Can you tell me who?
The Joker, so Heath Ledger and Joaquin Phoenix.
That's one, yeah.
Heath Ledger for The Dark Knight, Joaquin Phoenix for Joker.
You're the Oscars, man. You're the one with all the smart answers, man. I just fill the gaps here, bro.
It'll be like a royalty question. Someone's portrayed the same king or the same queen.
That's a good guess.
It's a really good guess.
It was Rita Moreno and Ariana DeBose. They both won Oscars for playing Anita in West Side Story.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah. Okay, Moreno in the 1961 original, DeBose in Spielberg's remake.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
There is a much larger cast in The Godfather Part 2, and we're going to talk about several other cast members as we go. Narratively, it's all about the two leads, though, and in those two, Pacino and De Niro at their best. It's about as good as it gets, isn't it?
It's unreal, watching the pair of them.
Fuck, it doesn't even need dialogue.
Yeah.
The middle.
Into the second act of The Godfather Part 2, and the chickens start coming home to roost.
Yep.
We'll soon be in the 50s to talk the mother of all sibling rivalries in Michael and Fredo. But first, we're back in Little Italy for murder.
Yep.
We are.
Having had some success with his life of crime, Vito Corleone starting to make a name for himself in the neighbourhood. So much so that he has to make local black hand extortionist Don Fanucci an offer he can't refuse, and is then approached by Anita Colombo, an older lady with landlord issues.
Yeah.
Shoots the Don right in the face, doesn't he, Matt?
He certainly does, and he really deserves it as well, because
what a bastard is he? He's
an absolute shithead. And
how's business? It's going good.
I think it's like Fanucci always giving it the big one. Everyone should fear me. He's just such a cliche. He's a big fish in a small pond. Yeah. Vito's the only one smart enough to figure that out. And the key thing for me is when Vito offers him, instead of the $200, he offers him $100. And if Fanucci was as powerful as he likes to make out, that would be an insult, and he wouldn't take it. And he would take care of Vito there and then. But he takes the money because he's cheap, and he's not all that. And that's key for Vito seeing it. And this is the scene for me where you draw parallels with Michael, because this is how Michael would do business. It's cold, it's calculated, it's really well planned. It's not how Sonny would do it. Sonny would go around kicking in doors, yelling insults at Fanucci, smashing them all over the place.
Have his belt off.
Vito, he's not like that. He's smart like Michael is smart, and he's cold. And this is a key scene in establishing that bond between them, because after he kills Fanucci, this seismic event that's going to change his and his family's life forever, cool as a cucumber, what does he do? He just goes home, he holds baby Michael in his arms, and he tells him that he loves him. And that, to me, is the scene that says Michael is truly his heir in a way that Sonny never was. And there's also this really nice little touch that apparently used De Niro's idea to wrap the towel around the gun as a silencer.
Oh, yeah, it's brilliant.
Lovely touch.
I mean, whether it's the best sequence in the film is up for debate, but I think this is my favourite sequence in the film for sure. There's so much to like. Firstly, when Finucci approaches Vito for the first time, when Vito's in his car, is it just me, or is Vito driving along and Don Finucci suddenly appears from nowhere? Where'd he come from?
He jumps in his car.
He just pops up like, hello. Really weird.
Like Collateral.
Yeah. But the first meeting between Vito and Finucci in the restaurant, you talked about it, Matt. It's interesting because Vito gives Finucci less money than he asked for, even though he doesn't need to. He's going to kill him anyway, so he could just give him whatever.
Yeah.
But he gives him less just to show that he's in control, I think.
Yeah.
And what's impressive is at the moment of the kill is intimate and claustrophobic on that stairwell, but Coppola, being as great as he is, still makes it huge and cinematic.
Yeah.
The moment outside the apartment where Finucci is flicking the light, not needed narratively, but so brilliant and so cinematic, the way it illuminates Vito and then casts him in shadow. Great tension builder. And then when Vito shoots Finucci and the towel catches fire, that's also visual. Again, it's all just classic Coppola. Absolutely brilliant. Also, how cool does De Niro look in that cabin overcoat?
Yeah,
he looks awesome.
He does.
Yeah. That's Peaky Blinders right there.
It is. A whole series.
The whole series is just that sequence. Two things I want to touch on. I love it when he's on the rooftops and he's climbing over. It's very familiar with what he does in Mean Streets.
Yeah.
And I think Coppola likes that, and he's kind of taken that with it. Another one, how long does it take Finucci to die and fall on the floor? He's there fucking ages. And he's just...
Giant swan.
No wonder he has to shoot him in the fucking mouth. He's like, is he still alive? He could have told us his life story after shot him in the face. And then thirdly, how easy is it to get rid of a fucking gun? People are just sitting there to drop down chimneys. It's just like there's gun parts appearing in your sitting room.
I think it's Clemenza.
Keep an eye on this for me. And then once he's done that, he's got the power, and then Signor Roberto's going to evict Anita Columbo, who's a friend of his wife, and she's got a dog, and the child loves the dog. She's trying to hide. He's like, okay, I'll sort it, but he doesn't say it in as many words. You can see it in his eyes that, he really cares about it, right? So then when there's that flip, and he comes to the olive oil shop, there's a really lovely, lovely moment, because Coppola left a nail in the door on purpose. And the actor playing him is called Leopold Triste, who was a classic Italian comedian. Right. And Coppola wanted to see him riff on it and see what would happen if he just left a nail in the door. And Frank Severo knows for a fact what's going on here, and so does De Niro. And you can see they're back and forth, and they're just like... And there's that comedy music that's playing over the top when he's trying to come through the door. I'll give you the money back. Bam, bam, bam. Yeah. And then he's like... he goes, right, I'll lower the rent, $5. And he's like, doesn't say anything. Oh, 10. He's like, ooh. And then he pulls the chair over and then sits down and then goes, stands back up, can I sit down? He sits back, and then he stands up again. And then you see him, he puts the nail back in the door and he goes to go back out and he has to go and open it again. It's just such an incredibly funny sequence. And like we're saying, like, Godfather Part II, it's just so dark and it's just so heavy and it's about all these big themes, but Coppola just paints these wonderful moments of dark humour in there and they really pay off, because it doesn't ruin the film at all. It just totally buys into Vito's character and the power that he now holds in the neighbourhood. He's going to hide out in the Bronx.
Yeah, it's not mentioned in the film, but in the script it tells us that Anita Columbo, the lady being evicted, is the grandmother of Sandra Corleone, who was Sonny Corleone's wife.
Oh, right, nice.
Right, okay. What I like, though, is the scene before that when Vito's negotiating with Roberto on the street, because you see that passerby who interrupts him to say hello to Vito. That was an actor called Carmelo Russo, and he was just an extra, wasn't supposed to have any lines. And Coppola got furious about it. But then De Niro stepped in and said, actually, I really like that, because that shows how the people in the neighbourhood respect Vito, and that's why it's been left in the film.
And disrespect Roberto as well, I guess, interrupting him.
Yeah. Taking his life in his hands there, Carmelo Russo. Look, in the wrath of Coppola.
I know. In the dialogue sequence as well, in the middle of it. As he's counting out money, like, I'll do it now.
So, things looking up for Vito then. Some superb scenes there, right?
Oh, unreal.
Incredible.
Yeah.
While things are definitely going well for Vito, the same cannot be said for Michael 4 decades later. Visiting Roth in Havana to talk business, Michael discovers who the family traitor is. It's only Fredo, the idiot brother. In these scenes we see the Superman show, awful, and Michael confronting Fredo at the stroke of midnight, New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
Absolutely massive, isn't it, Westy?
The Superman show or just the whole thing?
You've got that on the brain.
Oh, well, you've just put it there. Yeah, why on earth would Fredo think it's a good idea to take Michael here, or anyone in that matter, and enjoy it so much? Arm round his last, look what I haven't got, but I'm smart. No, you're not. And it's just, what a place to find out your brother's betrayed you. What a place. Well, he probably would have been a little bit more forgiving of him if you wasn't waving a massive in his face. It's just absolutely ridiculous thing to do. He's pissed off already. It's just when he goes, there's just that cut to that close-up to Pacino's face and the anguish and the pain and just this heartbreak and the look of betrayal in 15 seconds?
Yeah.
And he turns around to his bodyguard and just gives him a nod. And you know that things are now in play. And his bodyguard's fantastic, by the way, never says a word. Yeah. And he must have said to him, like, I'm taking you to Havana with us. He's like, I'll tell you what, I've got a lovely black outfit, a big woolen coat, a massive hat I'm going to wear all the time, and I'm not going to say a fucking word.
Must be boiling.
Boiling, absolutely boiling. But he's ruthless, and I think when you see Johnny get out of there, and he's through the door, the patio door, and he's kind of pulling him, and you go, yeah, if Michael's going to trust anyone, it's this guy who says nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, well, talking of the Superman show again.
There it is on your brain.
Apparently, Superman was a real guy in pre-revolution Havana who starred in live sex shows at a club called the Teatro Shanghai in the Chinatown district.
Well, was Brand doing that as well?
That's what he thought he was signing up for.
Krypton.
But I'm not sure if it was Puzo or Coppola, but someone's enjoying the research way too much.
Yeah, I think so. I'm just going to have to check that out 4 or 5 times.
But that scene is just superbly done. The subtlety of it is something you wouldn't see in a big movie nowadays, I don't think. No. And the way Michael puts his head into his hands when he realises Fredo's the traitor, I think is significant in a couple of ways. Firstly, it's one of the only times in the film that Michael looks vulnerable.
Yeah.
And also, I think the reason he looks so devastated, I'm not sure it's because of the betrayal. I think deep down, he probably suspected Fredo anyway. I think it's because he makes up his mind like that he knows Fredo's going to die.
Yeah, and then when it all comes to a head on New Year's Eve, which, like, in the wrong hands, that could be a bit pretentious, having it all come out New Year's Eve, the beginning of the new year, which should be, about hope and optimism for the future. Complete opposite for Michael, just absolute pessimism. Nothing good is coming in the new year. And the difference here for him is that for someone who's so cold and so calculating, someone who can lay traps way in advance for his enemies to just blunder into, because Fredo's family, he can't do any of that. Like, even before he speaks to him, you can see that devastation just across his face and in his eyes. And in this scene, he's almost stumbling around like he doesn't know what to do with himself, because it's not like his plan against Roth where he can go away and he can scheme and he can plot, he can get him where he wants him. With Fredo, it just bursts out of him. And the delivery of that line, I know it was you, Fredo, like, it's just amazing how he delivers that. Just, it's rage and it's disbelief and it's heartbreak. I absolutely believe that Michael is devastated by this, but like you've been saying, there's already the sense that he knows what he's going to have to do now. He knows where this is going to lead. So it's all that mixture bubbling up inside Michael, and then you cut to Fredo and the absolute shame on his face.
Yeah. And the fear as well.
Fear as well, yeah. He knows as well.
Yeah, even before that sequence when he's just asking Fredo where he's going, he's always got his eye on him. Where are you going? I'm going to get a real drink.
Yeah.
It's like, no, wait, don't go too far because you're fucked now.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the biggest scenes in any film anyway, I think, surely.
Yeah.
The wide shot of the party goers we get with Feliz Ano Nuevo on the banner, love that, instantly recognisable. Yeah. And the moment itself, the kiss of death on the lips. As drama goes, it's just huge. I like how there's no build-up to it, really. No ominous score to create the mood. It's all right in the middle of the New Year celebrations, but it still works. I think it's such a huge dramatic moment that's been coming since the first film that it overpowers everything, and you still feel it in the middle of a party atmosphere.
Yeah.
In terms of character drama, I'm not sure there's anything tops this.
No.
Not as instant or, as quick. You would normally need some other technique for this to hit home. Like, all of the background sound would have to drown out.
Yeah.
And you would have to have, like, something just coming over the top, or, like, some kind of voiceover, or some other element of filmmaking technique to hammer this home. And all you need is just these two actors in the middle of a party and understanding, the betrayal between both of them. It's almost like the brothers in real life.
Yeah. Yeah.
The middle act of The Godfather Part II, and it's gone up several notches. Don Fanucci's gone in brutal circumstances, and as for Fredo, it's not dark yet, but it's getting there.
Yeah, the drapes are closing.
The crew.
It wouldn't be a Francis Ford Coppola movie in the 70s without it being a gargantuan production.
Yeah.
Cocaine for breakfast. And the production of The Godfather Part II was huge. A big crew worked on the film, and we're going to talk some of the main players now. Nino Rota as composer and Gordon Willis as director of photography are two of them. But as usual, we're kicking off with the writers.
Yeah.
So the screenplay of The Godfather Part II is credited to Francis Ford Coppola and Mario Puzo, the same writing team from the first film, and like the first film, The Godfather Part II is classed as an adaptation of Puzo's novel The Godfather.
Mm-hmm.
The writing this time round, Westy, how is it?
I mean, it's as good as the first, except, you know, it does leave the holes that the first one does leave, with characters like Sonny not being in, and like we've talked about, you know, but they're not missing because he fills the gaps with other characters or other scenarios that completely work in this world. He manages to extend the world both in the past and into the future, and leave the Godfather sat in the middle. And I think it's very much a Coppola script. It's very akin to the rewrites that he does, the dialogue that he does. It reminds me a lot of Apocalypse Now, in the way that it's layered, in the way that it's got depth to it, in the way the characters are developed, in the way that every character has their time and their moment to shine, and you remember them all. And I don't quite know how he does that to such a degree, where you can write a character and just have half a page of dialogue, but you remember them for the rest of your life. You know, that's very much a Coppola trait. I think he does a fantastic job. I mean, I love a true Coppola script, and this is a true, like I say, I'd put it up there with Apocalypse Now as one of the true Coppola scripts, but I think this is more his than The Godfather 1. I think that had far more influence from the book, as you know, but this is him like taking that influence and running with it, but again being as intelligent as Puzo with the original material and managing to extend it. Who else can do that?
Yeah, I think the idea to have two narratives. Michael's story is the sequel to The Godfather, and Vito's story is the prequel. That's an outstanding idea. Original at the time. It's engaging and entertaining, but I love how they convey the themes of the film across the two narratives. I mean, a key theme in any Godfather film is family, but it's developed here from the first film. I think it's best summed up by what Michael says: keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. That's Michael's mantra, but what I find most interesting is that it's Vito who manages to reconcile his friends and enemies way better than Michael does. Vito and Michael are similar in lots of ways, but as business leaders, very different. Vito's decisions are based, to an extent, on family. Michael makes decisions based entirely on the family, as in the Corleones as a business. Michael's obsessed with the family, which I think in his head makes him think he's a family man. He doesn't seem to realise that he's completely closed off from his family. He shuts out Kay. He talks about his children like they was property, and I think he gets his treatment of Tom Hagen totally wrong. Tom is the one person in the business Michael can trust implicitly, but he pushes him away and tells him to go to Vegas because he's not his blood brother, I assume. Tom's like the personification of Michael's inability to differentiate between family and the family. Vito does keep his friends close and his enemies closer. Michael keeps his enemies close and his friends can all piss off. And Michael might grow the business beyond where Vito did, but his methods to do that kill the thing which powers the business, family. The wheels were always going to fall off the way Michael does things, and as we'll find out later, they do.
I think the way Coppola writes it, though, it's a more complicated time. There's more people who want to stab you in the back. It's not just straight down the line of you kill this guy, you're in charge. And I think that's what Michael thinks it is. You know, and you're right there, John said, but keep your enemies close and then wait until your friends become your enemies and bring them close as well. That's his mantra on it, because who can he trust, and does he have a choice? And I don't know. I think he tries the best he can with outdated traditional methods in a world that's moving too fast for him, especially in Vegas.
Absolutely, yeah. There are other things in the film: revenge, the patriarchy, religion. But I do think it's really impressive how Coppola and Puzo make the relationship between business and family a lot more complex this time round than the first time, and reflect that across both the narratives.
I think the writing's incredible, and what stands out for me is that recurring theme of age and of growing old, and the fact that Michael finds himself increasingly at odds with this modern world that he's now living in, because the first film was obviously, you know, violent and bloody and dark, but there was still a certain romanticism to it, a sense of there were codes in that world that people would, by and large, would adhere to. You know, you could be a poor orphan, but you could still rise up to lead your community and people would respect you. And I think that romanticism has completely gone here. In this one, Michael is squabbling over casino licenses. he's dragged into hearings before Congress, and all the people from the old way are dying. You know, Vito's gone, Hyman Roth is on his way out. You know, there's that line, one by one, our old friends are gone. Even something, and it's played for laughs, but the fact that Pentangeli can't believe there isn't one Italian in the band at the beginning. It is funny, but that just tells you how inauthentic these times are now for people who live the way, like, by that old code.
Yeah, and Pentangeli saying, you know, this isn't business, this is street.
Yeah.
You know, this is a code, this is honour, this is values, and they're all gone.
Yeah, it is. It's this old world that has fallen apart. You know, there's no class to this lifestyle anymore. You know, Fredo's wife is absolute trash. Connie is a cokehead. Her kids are petty criminals. God knows what they're doing. And that's the main theme. Change is inevitable and you can't stop it. And change fractures everything to the point where Michael can't even trust his own blood.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the credits say the film's based on the Godfather novel, like I mentioned, but only the scenes about young Vito are in the book, and only one chapter at that.
Oh, wow.
The story around Michael and Havana was entirely new for the film. That doesn't come as a surprise to me. The Vito scenes feel like more of a piece with the first film than the second, I think.
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
There are a lot of things in the film that take inspiration from real life. The scenes that show the Senate committee investigation are based on the Joseph Valachi federal hearings of the 1960s.
Yeah, Joseph Valachi was the first member of the Mafia to publicly confirm the Mafia actually existed.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
And he popularised the term Cosa Nostra, too. Italian for our thing, which is what they call the Mafia.
Well, there you go, lack of honour, and that's the 60s.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Don Fanucci was based on a New York gangster called Ignazio Lupo. He was a black hand extortionist and operated like Don Fanucci does in the film.
Yeah, I think he put on regular businesses like Fanucci does, and his nickname was Lupo the Wolf.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
He was suspected of carrying out more than 60 murders.
Wow.
Ridiculous.
Johnny Ola is played by Dominic Giannese, and he was based on a real-life youngster called Vincent Jimmy Blue Eyes Elo. That's a better name. Jimmy Blue Eyes. There he is, he's back. He was a capo in the Genovese family and had dealings in Cuba.
Yeah. He gets mentioned in The Irishman as well, Jimmy Blue Eyes.
Yeah, he does, yeah.
And Johnny 2 times gets mentioned in Goodfellas. So.
2 times?
Yeah. Not sure if he really got killed like he did here, though. That's some way to go, isn't it? Death by coat hanger.
Yeah, amazing. Death by turtleneck.
That's why he had the coat hanger with him. Didn't want to cruise the turtleneck.
And I know there were some early drafts, and that they changed quite a lot. And one of the big ones, there was a subplot where Tom Hagen was having an affair with Sonny's widow, which Coppola take up because he just thought it made Tom completely unlikable.
Yeah, well, yeah, it would do.
Yeah, you would hate him for that.
Yeah, but that line's still in the film, though, isn't it? It's saying you can take your wife, your children, and your mistress.
That's right. That's where that line's from, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I thought maybe Tom was just a player, a dark horse, with that line.
Yeah, so it was the quiet ones.
It is.
Yeah.
And originally, Kay was supposed to have a miscarriage, but it was Talia Shire who came to Coppola and said, if you make it an abortion is a way to hurt Michael, that's much more effective. And Coppola liked that so much. That's why there's the scene at the mother's funeral where Connie asked Michael to forgive Fredo because he wanted to give Talia Shire a really good scene to do as a way of saying thank you.
Oh, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is better than it is an abortion, I think, isn't
much
it?
better. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He's totally gone then. He's, he had a son. It's all he talks about throughout the whole film.
Yeah, was a boy. Yeah.
Mm.
And Talia Shire, she was paid $1,500 for The Godfather and then $40,000 for this film. Even though she surely has more to do in the first film, doesn't it?
Yeah, loads
definitely.
more.
Actually, that's probably one of the few criticisms I'd make. The two women in Talia Shire and Diane Keaton are both underused for me.
Tragically in
Kate
this film,
definitely is, yeah.
Yeah.
I know they're commenting on the patriarchy, but yeah, if you've got Diane Keaton, you use her, surely.
Yeah.
Instead, another Godfather film that ends with poor Kay getting a door slammed in her face every time. For writing the film, Coppola and Puzo won Best Adapted Screenplay at the Oscars, the same award they'd won 2 years earlier for the first film. And the writing here, full of depth, nuance, and entertainment, is maybe even better than the first film in some ways.
I would say so, yeah, definitely.
Arguably, but there's not much between it, is there?
The composer of the music for The Godfather Part II was another returning name. That's Nino Rota. The writer of the famous score first time round, Rota returned to add some rearrangements and fresh pieces to the soundtrack. How good is the music, Westy?
It's phenomenal, isn't it? So memorable. Incredible use of melody. You know, there's that scene where they go back to Sicily and they're all sitting outside and they're all eating. And the theme's there, but it sounds so traditional. and so classical, and it's like the theme that you all know, but it's just being removed from kind of a modern thing. I don't know how it's done, really. It just sounds modern in places and then really traditional in places, and really sorrowful and really low and really downbeat and then really uplifting, and, you know, bringing the rug back compared to, you know, eating in Sicily and just the tasting of the olive. It just has this real sincerity to it and a real thoughtfulness to it and a real flow all the way through, and it guides you through the film, and you don't even hear it half the time. The first shot of the film is that chair, and then Godfather Part II comes up, and then the theme swells, and you just go, right, I'm watching this for 3.5 hours. Yeah. And that's how good the music is. It just brings you in with the shot of a chair with a dint in it. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, I think sincerity is a good word to describe the score. Something that's a bit weird, though. 2 years earlier, Nino Rota was nominated at the Oscars for his score for The Godfather and then disqualified when they found out that he'd reused music from a 1958 film he'd done called Fortunella.
That's right, yeah.
Right, yeah.
The Godfather Part II also uses that music, but this time, not just nominated, he won the Oscars.
Well, they are. It's ridiculous.
Double standards for the Academy. That's not like them.
Is it not?
But a piece of music I love is when Michael's on his way to meet Hyman Roth at Roth's place, and there's this like really ominous, foreboding music playing. It's not on the original soundtrack for some reason, but it is composed by Rota for this film, and it's excellent.
Yeah.
And I mean, the main theme, one of the most iconic main themes ever written, I think.
Definitely.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect for the series, not just this film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Matt?
I just think it's got this real timeless quality to it, and everything that Rota does feels as embedded into the narrative and as important as the performances from Pacino, Brando, what Gordon Willis brings to it. It's really beautiful, but it's mournful and it's melancholic at the same time, and it has a real like grandiosity to it, but it's not pompous as well. It's just so well judged, and there are times where you don't need dialogue because the music does the talking for the characters, like that piece of music that plays when the immigrants arrive at Ellis Island and it just pans along their faces.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And the scared, but, you know, a little bit of hope in there as well. The music there is incredible. The music when Michael returns home after Christmas and it's covered in snow and his son's little toy car's outside and Case is there totally ignoring him doing the sewing. The music there just tells you everything that's going through Michael's mind. It's brilliant.
Also a bit off-piste, but have you ever heard Scott Walker's version of the Godfather theme with lyrics?
No.
No, I don't think I want to either. No.
Well, most people probably haven't, so here's a sneak peek.
Okay.
Here we go.
Beautiful, that. Is it not?
That's all right, to be fair.
Scott Walker pulls it off, like.
Yeah.
Speak Softly Love, it's called. If you like to check it out.
No, nice.
But like I mentioned, Nino Rota won an Oscar for his work on The Godfather Part II. Coppola's father, Carmine Coppola, was also awarded as he contributed some compositions, and that main score, deserving of an Oscar, I think.
Absolutely.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, so recognisable.
Into the cinematography now, and we've got another familiar face, where the director of photography on The Godfather Part II was Gordon Willis. DP on The Godfather, Willis had shot 3 films since then: Up the Sandbox, The Paper Chase, and The Parallax View. Acclaimed films, but back in the big time with The Godfather Part II. How's Willis' work here, Matt?
Well, he loves his silhouette and he loves his shadow, doesn't he?
So do I.
Can't get enough of it. Yes, he does.
I mean, we just talked about on the previous episode, he does. So to have All the President's Men, Godfather 1, Godfather 2 in the same decade, that's pretty good work, isn't it? You'd be pretty proud of yourself. But yeah, that use of shadow is just incredible. Like the ones that stick out for me is when Michael meets Johnny at Lake Tahoe, or when Michael is talking to Connie about the new guy that she wants to marry. You can barely see him. He's like so withdrawn into the shadows, you can barely see him.
Good.
You know, it's the character Michael spent.
Wesley just wants a black screen.
Yeah. I don't just want that perfect backlight. I just want that rim light. I just want to see enough. I just want to see enough.
Well, that's what I say. It goes back to what I said about, like, Michael in this film. He's almost a vampire because he spent so much time in shadow, which reflects where his character is now, and Willis's films it beautifully. And then the Vito scenes as well, that sepia tone. I can't think of many other films that are so convincing, it being set in the past. Like, Willis makes it feel like he filmed this on parchment. It's that good. It's you know, it's just incredible work.
Yeah, I think this was filmed at a time when going out and shooting on location was starting to become the standard because of developments in technology. So straight away, there's a contrast in the visuals to the first film. But my favourites do tend to come when it's following on from the visual themes established in the first film. The first Godfather I always think of as lots of really precise lighting and shadow, which gives it a kind of mysterious look and feel. Loads of shots of Vito's where his eyes are in shadow, like, my boy, look what they did to my boy. You can't see Brando's eyes when he's seeing that.
Panda eyes, yeah.
Incredible. There's moments here where we see that too. The first shot of the film where we see the party guests kiss Michael's hand, it's showing how Michael's now the Godfather. So intentionally, I think, it looks like it could be a shot from the Godfather. Mm-hmm. And all the Vito sequences in Little Italy hark back to the first film, I think. They have that classic Godfather kind of romantic glow to them. And then once we get to Cuba, it's sunlight, a lot brighter, and we get to see another side of what Willis can do. I think it's a bit of an aura masterclass from Gordon Willis. Another one.
Yeah. Vittorio Storaro was offered the part of DP in this and turned it down because he said, well, I cannot match that tone and it will not match that tone. I don't know how to match that tone, which is very nice of him to say.
And I mean, that's the guy that did Apocalypse Now, isn't it? So he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, he did work with Coppola later. And I can just see that. I could see how much of a challenge that would be to match this and to even have, you know, the Feast of San Rocco and have that outside in New York and still have it look overcast and dark and shadowed and contrasty and mix in with everything else. And the genius of what Willis does here is he doesn't use the cinematography to separate the timelines. He doesn't make Havana. Even when they sat outside on the, you know, they're having the heads are all having that meeting. And it's his birthday party. It doesn't seem bright and overlit. It just doesn't seem overworked. It's all about character. It's all about shadow. It's all about light. It's all about camera placement as well. I don't think people talk about that enough with Gordon Willis. Everyone talks about his lighting. Yes, it's dark. Yes, it's backlit. Yes, it's shadowed. But fucking hell, he can move a camera and he can keep it still when he wants to. I mean, that shot of Clemenza when he's just got his gun and the cop turns up and he's silhouetted against that door, and anyone else would push the camera in and just try and create tension, or cut to a close-up of the oh yeah, look, it's definitely a cop, and then just kind of just dolly across and reveal the gun, and then, oh, right, okay, I've seen. He just holds it. He just fucking holds it. There you are. There's a shot. There's a frame printed out. Put it on your wall.
Beautiful shot, that, isn't it?
It is beautiful. And like you said, young Vito with the Statue of Liberty reflected. Anyone else would do a focus pull on the Statue of Liberty to go, he's in America. But he doesn't. He leaves it on Vito and just goes, that's how you... It's up to the audience to decide that. And I think Gordon Willis was an absolute master at doing that. And if you look at his lighting and look at his technique, but also next time you watch Godfather Part 2, look at how he moves the camera and especially how he doesn't. An absolute master.
One thing I like, because it occurs in the first film, is that recurring motif of the orange being used to foreshadow death, like the death's a character. Because you get it here with Senator Geary. He gets framed for murder after he plays with oranges at Michael's house. Johnny Ola brings an orange into Michael's office before the attempt on his life. Vito buys oranges just before he decides to kill Don Fanucci, and Fanucci eats an orange just before he's killed, and then Michael is eating an orange while plotting to kill Hyman Roth.
Yeah.
Never eat an orange in front of a Corleone. Red rag to a bull.
Balls turn one down.
Never eat an orange in front of Coppola. What's the problem? And depending on what you read, The Godfather Part 2 was the last Hollywood film to be shot on Technicolor. And it was digitally restored to its original look in 2008. And though we're talking about Gordon Willis's lighting, but there's some things that he did admit to getting wrong. One of them, namely, was Michael getting advice from Mama or Carmela. And it is, right. I mean, that's dark. It's dark as shit. Oh, yeah. But they actually spoke to Gordon Willis and said, what do you want lifting here? How much do you want the shadows lifting? How much do you want this restored? So he had a chance to put it right.
Lovely. Yeah, it's more of a muted Technicolor, I think. I mean, it's not the Wizard of Oz, is
it? Absolutely not. No.
But I love the colour palette, especially the video sequences.
Yeah.
Unlike many others who worked on the film, Gordon Willis didn't win an Oscar for The Godfather Part 2. He wasn't even nominated.
Wow.
Crazy. The Academy were like, direction, brilliant. Acting, brilliant. Writing, brilliant. Music, brilliant. Cinematography, rubbish.
Yep. Top 5.
Crazy.
I'd love to know who else was nominated that year.
Well, the winners that year were Joseph Biroc and Fred J. Corninkamp for The Towering Inferno.
Oh, well, I mean, you're talking about orange.
Loads in that.
Loads in that.
I think we should mention the production designer, Dean Tavoularis, too. The work he and his team did on recreating 1920s Little Italy is just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Also, when Michael's following Johnny Ola to Roth's place, those Cadillacs they're driving.
Yeah.
Beautiful sets of wheels, those.
Yeah.
Stunning.
Especially Michael's with that red, the black and red on the side. Oh, fucking cool. Right. Yeah.
A huge team working on The Godfather Part 2 then. Coppola, the puppet master, obviously, but in collaborating with names like Mario Puzo, Nino Rota, Gordon Willis and Dean Tavoularis, there was some serious talent involved across the board.
Yeah,
absolute fucking dream team.
The end.
The third and final act of the film, but we're not done yet. Far from it. We're going to be talking about Michael and the culmination of his relationship with Fredo, Roth, and Pentangeli. First, though, should we wrap things up with Vito?
Let's do it.
Should, yeah.
In 1923, Vito visits Sicily with his business partner, Tomasino. Using their fledgling olive oil setup as a cover, they visit Don Ciccio, the man responsible for the deaths of Vito's family. Vito tells Ciccio who he is right before killing the Don.
Yep.
Slices him right across the belly.
He does.
As the Klingons would say, revenge is a dish best served cold. Right, Westy?
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, I mean, this is a fantastic, fantastic sequence. It's wonderful from just the arrival to them leaving, and it's just De Niro's performance here. There's just the power of it. There's just the panache of it. Like we mentioned before, you know, he's just put on that little bit of weight. He's just got that smaller mouthpiece to just emulate Brando just that little bit more. And when they're walking up, and it's just, but the things I love about this is just the happy accidents and the way the light's just bouncing off that olive oil. As if to say his future's brighter than yours. Yeah. And like, this is where he's going, and this is his ticket out of here. And it's just that small, like, Ciccio's just rubbish. He's past it. He's done for. He's just sat there. There's just one guy guarding him at the top, another guy walking around. His guard's down now. And like you said, John, just that slice, because you think he's just stabbed him, but it's the way De Niro moves out the way and then continues with it. And you're like, whoa, all right. It's like he wants to cut him open and like pull him out, pull his soul out of his body.
And this is for you.
This is for you. Fucking yes. And it's really satisfying. And like we said before, that shotgun blast that lifts him off the ground. Yeah. He's just boom, in a way. And then they're just, I love the way there's no more to that. It's just, that's it, and it's done, it's full stop. He's kind of reversing away from him and looking at him die, and then you fade to black, and I think it's just a wonderful sequence.
Yeah, like I mentioned before, there are similarities between Vito and Michael, but at their core, I think they're very different. Vito is fire, Michael is ice, to me. Yeah. I think that's present through the film and then culminates in the finale. Throughout the film, we see differences in the way they treat people. Vito has some compassion. Michael has none. Yeah. We see Vito tell baby Michael he loves him. We don't see Michael treat his family like that ever. No. Vito helps Anita Colombo. No way will Michael be helping a lowly stranger. No. Then here in the climax, both characters commit a huge act of vengeance. Vito against Don Ciccio, Michael on Fredo. The actions are similar, but the motives aren't. Vito doesn't need to kill Don Ciccio. He's doing fine, building his empire in Little Italy, but travels thousands of miles to Sicily because he wants to kill his family's murderer. It's a very emotional decision. Yeah. Michael, I think, emotionally doesn't want to kill Fredo, which is why he says nothing happens to him while my mother's alive. He does it entirely as a business decision. Fredo's became a liability to the family. It's a very cold, thought-through action. I think that's why so many people say they prefer the Vito sequences in the film, because he's much more emotional, so easier to relate to. I think that's done intentionally. And what I find interesting is that Coppola doesn't definitively tell us whether how Vito is, or how Michael is the best way to be. He kind of leaves us on tenterhooks, at least until the third film anyway.
Yeah. It just feels like everything's being brought full circle. It's almost like a nice family outing back in the old country, which ties into...
I'm not going your family outings, man.
Invite in the post. Come out with me, brother, see what happens.
We'll pop over there, just check on the olives. By the way, Ciccio's still alive. Let's go and kill that fucking piece of shit.
Well, I think it ties back to the fact that Michael escapes even the first film as well. And there's little moments like the fact that Michael is never out of Vito's arms here. So we see the bond these two have. We see Sonny practicing boxing with one of his, I presume it's some distant relative or someone from the village. Yeah. And everything feels so idyllic at first. You kind of forget what happened there and why Vito was there, because we've already seen he's not, a foaming-at-the-mouth psychopath. He does have still, as much as this is an emotional decision, there's still a bit of coldness and steel to his actions, and that he really thinks things through. And it just brings it home. He has been planning this moment for so long, and he's never forgotten. And you kind of have forgotten, but he never did. And he doesn't care that Ciccio is pretty much on his deathbed anyway. And what impacts me is how different the killing is to Finucci. Finucci's murder was quick, it was ruthless, it was a message. This is much more painful, ripping his guts open. That's a proper message being sent. And it's dicey because he's got to make a getaway and there's armed guards there that he didn't have to consider when he killed Finucci. But everything in this past section of the film, it feels complete now, and you think, that's the Godfather.
He's not very well protected, though. She chew, is he?
No, he's not
Just
got
one guy with a gun.
Yeah. Another one downstairs,
Yeah.
So Vito heads back to New York to continue his journey towards becoming mob boss, and that's the end of his story, or the beginning. Either way, some ride, isn't it?
Yeah, hell of a story.
Absolutely.
Back in the 1950s, Michael's plot threads are starting to be wrapped up too, by Michael being totally ruthless.
Yeah.
The congressional hearing is halted in its tracks when Pentangeli spots his brother sitting with the Corleones, and Corleone domination secured when Michael's rival Hyman Roth is executed at the airport.
He is.
How's this all turn out, Matt?
Well, like, first few times I watched this, I always found the hearing sequences a bit of a drag, but I've really come round to them because I think Coppola wants us to find it a bit dull. It's such a waste of Michael's time to be sat there. Yeah. And actually, I really love now the way that Coppola shoots it, which is just grounded. It does look like news footage. It does look like one of those 24-hour channels in America you could turn on.
It's just formalities, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially like a little news logo in the corner or something.
Like the Depp and Heard hearing.
Yeah, exactly. Well, exactly. But yeah.
Glued to that, were you, Westy?
Oh, yeah, I've got it on tape.
And I think it's another reminder of how Michael is in such a different time to Vito. I don't think Vito would have ever got himself in a situation where he's being hauled in front of a bunch of politicians to excuse his actions. But back then it was simple, and it feeds in that theme I mentioned, which is all that romanticism of the past is gone. And if you do things like try to get in the casino business, it's going to get messy and complicated like it is here. But what I love is how Michael is thinking tactically all the time, because it's such a great bit of thinking to bring Frankie's brother over, because he's a Don from the old country. And as soon as Frankie sees him, the way Coppola cuts from like reaction shots, Frankie to his brother, back to Frankie, to Michael, back to Frankie, without a word of dialogue, everything has changed in Frankie's head, and he's going to change his story. It's so cleverly done. And what I also like, though, is that there are some famous faces in the Senate committee as well. They're populated by a bunch of actual Hollywood producers and writers. I think Roger Corman's probably the most recognisable. I think you can pick him out. But also in there's Phil Feldman, and he was a producer on The Wild Bunch, as well as screenwriter William Bowers. He's in there as well.
Nice. Richard Matheson's in there too, the writer of I Am Legend. And
Yeah.
And Jaws 3D.
Well,
the classic. That's next week's episode.
Originally, it was supposed to be Clemenza, who would be in the hearing, but before filming, Richard Castellano, who played him in the first film, pulled out because he and Coppola couldn't agree on a salary. So Coppola and Puzo came up with the character of Pentangeli and cast Michael v. Gazzo.
Yeah, Richard Castellano's wife, Ardell Sheridan, she said that Castellano didn't return because Coppola wanted him to put on 50 pounds in weight, and he refused. Right. So they are different stories.
Is it salary or weight then? £50?
I mean, it would have been better with Clemenza, surely. Much more powerful for him to betray Michael. Yeah. It still works, though. And he was nominated for an Oscar, too, Michael v. Gazzo.
Yeah. I love Pentangeli, though. You wouldn't have that bit with the band at the start without the...
Yeah.
You should have done that at the Senate hearing. Pop goes the Weasley. Oh, who the fuck's this guy?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, if you see Michael Corleone sitting next to your brother, you withdraw your testimony for sure.
Yeah. His brother's expressions as well. He's just fucking...
what are you doing?
It's like he's got a knife at his back all the time.
Yeah. I like a bit following that as well when we see Tom talking to Pentangeli about Roman soldiers opening the wrists to save the family. Next thing we know, Pentangeli's done just that. Merciless from Michael.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, for that testimony scene, apparently during rehearsals, Gazzo gave such a great performance, like knocked it out the park, that Coppola wanted to start filming it immediately, but regulation said, no, you have to stop for lunch. Unfortunately, Gazzo went out and had a bit of a liquid lunch, came back pissed as a fart, and didn't perform at Anyone Eve as well.
All right.
Coppola would have been raging, I've no doubt.
I would imagine.
Sounds a bit well, Gazzo, to be honest, doesn't it?
Gazzo seems pissed. Is he pissed on this take? Because he does seem a bit pissed.
Maybe he is, yeah.
He's like, I just wanted the family. I just said that. Acting that way as if he's a bit stupid, but I think it really works if it is.
Turned up with some chicken and fishing rods like Gaza. Vincent Gaza.
So after the death of Pentangeli, we'll see how everybody's fallen who's betrayed Michael, which is just fantastic, which is quite similar at the end of the first one when the five families start falling. And it's Roth killed at the airport for me that really stands out as a sequence, and it really hits home because it's not lit like anything else in the other film. If the other film or this one, it just really stands out. And it's like, this is really harshly lit. Like, this makes no sense. Why is he just getting interviewed by all these people? And it really reminds me of when Lee Harvey Oswald was shot by Jack Ruby.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
And it's got that real vibe. And you see Rocco running through, and he's kind of dressed the same as Ruby, and there's just that gunshot, and he goes down. And I think that's why it was done like that. There's a lot of Kennedy references in here.
Yeah.
The Senator references, the hearing. And at the same time, I really think that's interesting that that's Rocco, and Rocco's the first person that he talks to after the assassination. And he's the one who's meant to be sent off to get these guys. So does he kill them? Did he open the drapes? Is he the one? And is Michael wiping him out at the same time as he's wiping out Roth?
Right. Oh, okay.
Because nobody's going to survive that.
No,
that's a suicide mission.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course it is, yeah.
It's the end of the guy whose whole motivation to bring Michael down was because he knew he gave the order to kill Moore Green in the first film.
Yeah.
And it was a friend of his, and I don't ask, who gave the order. It was business, and that's full of shit. But also, Lee Strasberg became ill during shooting, but instead of stopping production, Coppola rewrote some scenes to show Roth as ailing and lying down to accommodate Strasberg. And I think that comes along with a lot of dialogue, especially like health, there's nothing more important, not money, nothing. That's the only way to put him down.
Yeah. Constant rewrites for Coppola.
Yeah.
Is it just me? Oh, it's every time Coppola makes a film, it sounds like the most stressful thing in the world.
Just sitting with his top off with a typewriter, sweating.
Simon Roth could have been different to what we see on screen because originally he was going to be based on a real-life gangster called Meyer Lansky, who is pretty infamous, definitely a name a lot of people will have heard of, and he had a huge legal gambling empire that stretched overseas.
Yeah, Roth's line to Michael, we're bigger than US Steel. That was something that Meyer Lansky said to his wife.
Right.
Wow.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I don't know, before he cast Strasberg, Coppola had originally wanted Jimmy Cagney, who unfortunately turned him down. And he then considered Peter Sellers, which... yeah, Cagney, yes. Sellers, though?
Sellers.
I mean, I love Sellers, but not in this.
Sellers would have wanted to play three parts. Pentangeli and Johnny Ola as well.
And young Vito.
Yeah. We've done them all. But then after that, Strasberg was quite a way down the list, actually, because the next choice was the director Elia Kazan, but he turned it down.
Wow.
Then it was Strasberg, but he had retired at this point, so Coppola set up a 45-minute meeting to convince him to take the role.
Wow.
Yeah, Coppola said that when he visited Elia Kazan to talk about it, Kazan was topless. And apparently that's why Roth's topless in some scenes is a kind of homage.
All right.
Nice.
I thought it was more like a homage to Albert Steptoe. Does look like Albert Steptoe.
He does.
Dirty old man.
What's next? Rise and Damp. Oh, Miss Jones.
We always get Rise and Damp in.
Well, Westy does.
I do. It's the only one I know.
Also with Roth, this is earlier in the film, but how awesome does his birthday cake look when he has that party?
Oh, that big white cake.
Someone says, I'll just have a small slice. He's the size of the fucking thing.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Just a small slice.
Bigger piece for me.
Bigger piece. It's like a fucking breeze block.
So Michael's story is coming to an end with the removal of the investigation, Pentangeli and Roth. Only one loose thread left. His big brother.
Mm-hmm.
Hail Mary, full of grace. The Lord is with thee.
By this time, Michael's mother has passed on, and Michael has one final problem to resolve.
Yeah.
Freddie. In these scenes, we see Carmela's funeral, Fredo demanding respect, and instead meeting his demise in a fishing boat.
Mm.
Yeah.
Fredo's a goner, Matt. How's this all go for you?
It goes tragically, and it breaks me heart every time I watch it. And it's the ideal moment to talk about Ghazal, really, because this film for me is as much about his tragic arc as it is Michael's. I mean, Michael loses all his humanity, which is bad enough, but for Fredo to just be constantly overlooked by everyone, by his father, by his brothers, that's devastating. And I think Ghazal just puts that on screen effortlessly. And as much as he is pathetic and untrustworthy, your heart still goes out for them. And I think that's down to the performance. You know, the way he's just sank into that chair. Like, he can't even summon up the energy to get out of it, to stand up for himself.
He's like lying down, isn't he?
Just lying down like, I'm smart. Not smart enough to get out of your chair, though. You just, you know.
I'm smart.
I was looked over.
Yeah. And, you know, that dialogue could be a bit hammy, but it's not in Ghazal's delivery. And the thing about the performance, and I think I said this on There Will Be Blood, talking about Paul Dano, like, it's really difficult to tell an actor you're the weakest character in the film, but don't make your performance weak. You know, and across the trilogy, well, the first two parts, Fredo, he's overshadowed by Michael and Sonny, but Ghazal is never overshadowed by Pacino or Corner, anyone else, because he was absolutely their equal as an actor.
Yeah, 100%.
And Michael here, it's just the coldest you'll ever see him. He's so restrained. That speech, you're nothing to me now. Not a brother, not a friend. And I also think back, it contrasts so well to earlier scenes, like when Michael tells Fredo he doesn't have to apologise about anything because he's his brother, when he's getting Baz by his wife at the party. The bit that kills me is when Fredo, they're in Cuba, and he asks, how do you say banana daiquiri? And Michael says banana daiquiri, and he just gets the little smile on his face like, my brother, he's such a doofus.
Yeah.
It's just that little moment of humanity, that little moment of being brothers above everything else. And then Ghazal here, just for me, it's the most devastating scene in the whole trilogy.
I agree, yeah. But we talked about the lighting before as well with Gordon Willis. And in this scene with Michael and Fredo, it's just stunning.
Yeah.
The interior's dark. Michael walks in and he's cast like a silhouette against the winter. Snowfall setting outside.
Yeah.
The music as well is another piece not on the soundtrack, but superb. And I think by this point, Michael's barely even functioning as a human being.
Yeah.
He's just this like mafia kingpin cyborg, shrewd as a serpent. And then at the funeral, Michael approaches Fredo, he hugs him, and we're kind of thinking, the mother's passing has made Michael realise what's important, has it?
Yeah.
And then he gives that look to Al Niri, the look of death.
Yeah.
But I mean, couldn't have told him afterwards, right there. Al Niri looks really uncomfortable as well, as you would, obviously.
Yeah.
But it's a good job Michael's men understand all of his little looks and gestures. Nothing would get done.
No, I'd be so confused. What are you looking at me for? You want an orange? I don't know.
Banana daiquiri?
Yeah, banana daiquiri.
But the cold, attached sociopathy from Michael here is so insane that in a lesser film, a film where the filmmaking isn't of such a high level, we might not even buy it. It would almost be funny, I think, but not here. It's devastating.
Yeah.
I mean, that funeral scene's, 1 minute long? It's about 4 shots, maybe. Not one word comes out of Michael's mouth. And yet Coppola still tells a story within that scene. Just superb.
This is the point that I was going to get at earlier on when when you said, why did Fredo open the drapes and he knew what was going on, and he says, I honestly didn't think it was going to be a hit.
Yeah.
And I think he thought he was going to get the rewards that he deserved from Roth and in Vegas, and he's going to have a casino to run, and it's going to be good for the family because you're going to bring money in, they're going to respect you, and that's what's going to happen. And I think, honestly, it was going to be a kidnapping of Kay.
Right.
That's why he opened the drapes to find out where she's going to be. He told him where the room was. And Michael actually turns in and says it's late. And he kind of turns in early when he's at the bar.
Right.
And I think Michael was meant to be taking care of business into the early hours. And they were meant to come kidnap Kay, make Michael do what they wanted him to do, make a fool out of him. Fredo would then have become, the head of the family, whatever else.
Imagine.
That's kind of in his head, though, isn't it? That's what he thought it was going to happen, and that's what he thought he was capable of doing. So I honestly think that was his remit, was just to follow their lead. He was manipulated as he's manipulated by everybody, and it doesn't work out well for him, does it? But when we actually go to that scene, when Fredo's on the boat and he's silhouetted, and it's just such a heartbreaker, and he's just saying the Hail Marys, and there's just an incredible collection of shots, again from Coppola choosing them, and again from Willis shooting them. There's the push in, just as the gun becomes into frame. It just comes in, which is so good. And then it cuts to Michael, and you're on Michael as Fredo dies, and everyone forgets that because you think you see Fredo get shot. But watch it again, when the gunshot goes off, Michael's head goes down, as if he's been shot in the back of the head, as if he's killed, like his final personality, his final soul has been removed from the back of his neck. It's that drop of the head as if he's dead, and then it cuts back, Fredo's not there. And there's that lovely, lovely shot of just that bird squawking as if the bird disagrees with what's going on. And it's fucking, no, and it's furious. And Al Niri just stands up, and it's sunset. And it's just over.
Yeah.
Oh.
What's really interesting is that Coppola and Puzo, they didn't agree on whether Michael should have Fredo killed or not. Coppola said yes, Puzo said no, and he ended up only agreeing on the condition that Michael would wait until the mother had passed away before ordering Fredo's execution.
Yeah, that line to Al Niri, nothing happens to him while my mother's alive.
Yeah.
What a line that is.
Yeah.
If I'd written that line, I'd just instantly retire.
It'd be a really short film. Coppola wanted to age Fredo So the makeup team gave Casal thicker eyebrows, a pencil tash, and a higher hairline to make him look more like Vito in the first film. If that was what they were trying to achieve, I don't think they've quite nailed it. No. But, you know, he's smart.
Yeah, that high hairline work explains a lot because Fredo's forehead looks massive.
Yeah, it's a 5-head. It's like IMAX. You can watch Oppenheimer on it in its original format.
And in the New Year's Eve sequences, he's wearing like this white suit. Always reminds me of Manuel of Fawlty Towers. Poor Fredo.
Poor Fredo.
Okay.
I can speak English.
I learned it from a book.
And then the second to last scene in the film is the flashback where we see the Corleones having dinner on Vito's birthday, which is amazing. Yeah. That scene. And Marlon Brando was supposed to be there, but he didn't show up on the day it was due to be filmed, so Coppola just sacked him off and rewrote it without him.
Right. Would have been great to see Brando's Vito back there, wouldn't it?
I don't know.
You don't think?
Nah, I don't think so. It's miles better that he's off screen and that Michael's left by himself and all you see is his empty chair.
Yeah.
That's how he's left anyway. It's how he's left at the end of the film.
Yeah,
He's got so much to say about it. And the thing I love about this scene is when Fredo's the only one who congratulates him about joining the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
And I think that's really underhand because he thinks, great, Michael's going to die in the war. That's a step closer for me to become, head of the family. And Sonny's unhinged, so that he's going to die soon. Yeah. And when James Caan did come back for the final scene, he said he'd only do it if he was paid exactly the same amount as the whole first Godfather film. And Paramount actually agreed to do it. But I tell you what, he brings the weight. He does bring it and proves that he should
slapping
be.
Michael around, brilliant.
It feels like it's like a deleted scene from the first film.
Oh, yeah. And that final scene, narratively, it's like a microcosm of Michael's story to that point. The family's all together, then everyone goes until he's left all alone. It would have been awesome if the characters had left the scene in the same order they do in the films. Like Sonny, and then Fredo, and then Tom. Yeah. But can't have everything.
Yeah. Where would you put it?
And then the final shot, which is that one of Michael. He was also given some makeup there, Pacino, when he's sitting by the lake. Because the idea is it's now 1968, so it's not massively noticeable, but if you do look carefully, you can see he's got more wrinkles, he's got a receding hairline, and some of his hair's being coloured with grey.
Mm-hmm.
That's right, yeah. That shot actually came at the end of a scene that Coppola wrote and filmed where Michael's son, Anthony, who's now 18 because it's 1968, he tells Michael that he won't be following him into the family business. Right. And that's why Michael looked like such a misery guts.
Yeah.
Right. I don't think we needed that final blow, to be fair.
No,
it's
I don't think we do. But also, Connie was in that scene, and there was a line where she mentions Fredo drowning in the lake, so we know that's what everyone was led to believe.
Right.
Okay. That's too much.
Yeah. How anyone would believe that when Michael Corleone is right there. I have no idea.
It is Fredo, though.
Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah. Anyone else wouldn't buy it.
I didn't have a life jacket on. I'm smart.
So then, to take us to the end of the end, we have our final Patreon question. It's on John Cazale, and it comes from Peter Sutcliffe, not that one. So, whereas Benjamin and Carl kept it simple, Pete's keeping it real.
Okay.
He's asked us, has anyone ever had a better run of film performances than John Cazale?
Right.
So, a little bit of context for anyone that doesn't know. John Cazale only appeared in 5 features before he sadly passed away in 1978.
Yep.
Those 5 films were The Godfather, The Conversation, The Godfather Part II, Dog Day Afternoon, and The Deer Hunter. All 5 of those were nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars. And like Pete points out, all 5 include great performances from John Cazale.
Mm-hmm. And all 5 were made within 6 years.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, that.
So what do you think, Matt? Has there been a better acting run than that one?
I mean, it's so impressive. There's just no fat in that run. And there's nothing where you go, well, apart from that one, letting it down a bit. I think, though, you could maybe argue he's not that memorable in The Conversation. You know, it's very much a pretty small role he has there, so that doesn't stand out. But I would say, if we're talking about anyone else, I would say Pacino, because this was his run. And not all of these films are particularly well known, but he is great in all of them. But in a row, he did Panic in Needle Park, The Godfather, Scarecrow, Serpico, The Godfather Part II, and then Dog Day Afternoon.
Lovely.
No, that's impressive.
Yeah, John Cazale, brilliant actor, isn't he? the scene we've been talking about here and taking the piss out of. I'm smart. I mean, it is funny, but he's unbelievable.
He is
in
unbelievable in
that scene.
that. We're only taking the piss because it's so uncomfortable to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is, yeah.
Exactly. So, yeah, great actor. And what about you, Westy? A greater run of performances?
I don't think so. And we've had this, me and Matt have had this discussion, I know for a fact, over a couple of pints, and I think we all have, and we've all come to the conclusion that really there isn't. During the time and during the energy and the power that he puts into the performances, and you could say, yeah, Matt, you're absolutely right, which I've heard you say before, there's the dip in the conversation, but he's so good in Dog Day Afternoon, he's so good in The Deer Hunter, he's so good in Godfather 1 and 2, and he's just so good and recognisable, and it felt like he was just put on this earth to make these 5 films and then go.
Yeah.
That's how it feels to me. All the performances are just like gifts. And the fact that he delivered these gifts, and they're all recognised for Best Picture, they're all made within that time, and he was recognised, and it's still now as an artist, and still nobody's better at this, then I would say absolutely not. This is the run for me.
Lovely. A big loss.
Huge loss.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
And that's the final act of The Godfather Part 2. Don Ciccio's gone, Fredo is gone, and Hyman Roth is gone. Turns out Michael was right. You can't kill anyone.
Everyone.
Yeah, everyone.
Reception and awards.
When you're talking classics, there's not many fit that bill as much as The Godfather Part 2. It was that way from the start, although there was a pretty negative test screening before the film was released.
Right.
Yeah, because I know that Paramount got the feedback and they passed that on to Coppola, and the feedback was the audience found the cutting back and forth between Michael and young Fredo bothersome, so Coppola and his editors reduced the amount of transitions to make it easier to follow.
Bothersome. What a word that is.
Bothersome. Yeah.
And extended the transitions as well, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, to make it more obvious that it's going back in time, I suppose.
Yeah.
I think you can kind of tell changes were made. It's around 45 minutes before we see De Niro at all. I think in that first cut, he might have appeared a lot sooner. I'm not sure.
Yeah, especially if it's smash cuts to it.
Yeah.
Bang, who's that? Bang, who's that? No description whatsoever. What the fuck?
Cuts to a gunshot. Boom.
Yeah. That's what the Scorsese cut in it. He did it.
Yeah. Like Tommy at the end of Goodfellas.
Yeah, exactly.
But when the film did come out, the response from audiences was unsurprisingly very positive. On a budget of $13 million, The Godfather Part 2 took $93 million, so a big old profit. And critics-wise, though, the film had some mixed responses.
Yeah.
Vincent Canby of the New York Times said the film was stitched together from leftover parts. It talks, it moves and fits and starts, but it has no mind of its own. The plot defies any rational synopsis.
Well, I can see that at the time. There's nothing like it.
Yeah.
You need a little bit of time to say, well, there's 2 narratives weaved together here. Get used to it.
Yeah. Sounds like Vincent watched a very advanced screening of Part 3 to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Imagine him watching Tenet. Well, I think it's stitched apart with time.
Roger Ebert, out of 4. What do you think Roger gave it?
Full 4.
Full 4, yeah.
Roger the Dodger gave the film 3 stars out of 4.
Wow.
And said, the story of Michael told chronologically would have had substantial impact, but the chronological shifts of narrative are a structural weakness from which the film never recovers.
Really?
No, I think they're really well chosen.
Yeah, well, I would agree. But a few years later, Ebert did retrospectively change his score to 4 stars out of 4.
Oh, okay.
Though still said he wouldn't change a word of his original review. So, structural weaknesses, never recovers, 4 stars. Okay, Rog.
Okay. Yeah, that now benefits the film.
And William Pechter of Commentary said, a self-important, overly deliberate and self-conscious attempt to make a film that's unmistakably a serious work of art.
Yep, that's every reason you make a film. That is
What's wrong
5
with
stars
that?
to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. In other words, it insists upon itself, I think.
Okay.
Good. What art shouldn't?
Today, The Godfather Part 2 has Rotten Tomatoes approval ratings of 96% from critics and 97% from audiences.
There you go.
And on IMDb, a huge 9 out of 10.
9 out of
4th
10.
on the IMDb top 10 250 movies of all time.
Wow.
1 place below The Dark Knight and 1 above 12 Angry Men.
Right.
Yeah.
Well.
3 Angry Men here with those reviews.
Yeah.
And the film dominated at the Oscars, winning Best Picture, Best Director for Coppola, Best Adapted Screenplay for Coppola and Puzo, Best Supporting Actor for De Niro, Best Art Direction for Dean Tavoularis, Angelo P. Graham and George R. Nelson, and Best Original Score for Nino Rota and Carmine Coppola.
Nice.
Not even a mention for Gordon Willis is a bit baffling, though.
It's fucking infuriating, that's what it is.
So there it is. Not exactly acclaimed from critics at the time for The Godfather Part II, but a massive hit at the box office, dominating at the awards, and those critics came to eat their words, I think.
Mm-hmm. Eat the words and change it around, didn't they?
Yeah.
Sequels and influence.
The Godfather Part II was a sequel and a prequel, and had a sequel of its own, didn't it?
Yep.
In 1990, Coppola and the Corleones returned in The Godfather Part III, where, guilt-ridden over the death of Fredo and many other things, Michael decides he wants his family out of the Mafia. Mm-hmm. The Mafia, though, have other ideas. Pacino, Keaton and Talia Shire are all back, De Niro and Duvall are not, and there are some new faces in Andy Garcia, Eli Wallach and Sofia Coppola, daughter of Francis. So what do you think of Part 3, Westy?
I don't know. I know that there was a recent cut come out that far surpasses the original one. I might give that one a go because I'm banging to this at the minute. I might just wait a while and go and do 1, 2 and 3 and see if they all sit together. But I know its reputation and I hope that changes with this new cut.
Part 3, I don't think it's a terrible film or anything, to be honest, but clearly a big drop from the first two. There's loads out there on why Part 3 isn't very good. So instead of adding to that, I'm going to tell you what I think they should have done.
Oh, yes. Do I even need to watch it now? This is fucking perfect.
I think they should have carried on with what they were already doing, basically.
Should have just kept being brilliant.
And this is how they do it.
Okay, great.
So the first two Godfather films are mostly about Vito and Michael. Part 1's the end of Vito's story as the Godfather and the start of Michael's story as the Godfather. Then Part 2 is the start of Vito's story and the continuation of Michael's.
Yeah.
So Part 3 to me is obvious. It should have given us the final missing acts, the end of Michael's story and the continuation of Vito's. We do get the end of Michael's story, so trim that down by an hour or so, take the best bits, and I think you'd have a better narrative. Then bring De Niro back as Vito, the 1930s, where he grows the Corleones from where we left off in Part 2 to become one of the 5 families in New York.
Right, yeah.
You'd have had this narrative that's just an ongoing cycle, because with Vito in there, Part 1 would be the sequel to Part 3.
Right, nice, yeah.
So instead, Vito out, Garcia in. I mean, I like Garcia, but he's not Brando and he's not De Niro.
No. It's like a Once Upon a Time in America kind of vibe then.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of, I suppose, yeah.
With De Niro,
Yeah. I
like that though, mate. That's really good.
Yeah, I think I do agree with you, John, that I don't think it's an awful film. I think it's just the first two set the bar so high that this one being so far below it probably has its reputation is probably a little worse than it deserves, I would say. But there are a lot of issues with it. I do think Apocalypse Now just did destroy a bit of Coppola's brain because that was so insane. I don't think he was the same.
And mine.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, that's just watching it. Imagine making it. There's no surprise he was not the same man afterwards. And it's just, with Part 3, so many little elements are off. Michael isn't that cold, careful, calculating person from the first two. He just makes really stupid decisions, like appointing this nutcase Vincent as his heir.
That's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous of someone who's so careful in every decision. It's like watching a different character. And then just the stuff that Coppola's doing, keeping it in the family to the extent of casting Sofia Coppola, who I really like as a writer-director, but she's not an actress. Yeah, and the fact that a lot of it is sent in like contemporary times, it just feels wrong, like helicopter attacks. It just feels wrong in a Godfather film. And the whole thing for me is like, if Coppola hadn't been able to do it, someone stepped in to try and copy his style. That's what Godfather 3 feels like. It's almost a parody of the first two of the style.
Hold on, helicopter attacks.
Yeah.
Hold on. What, Lethal Weapon? I'm in.
So Part 3, it was a letdown, unfortunately. But back to Part 2, which certainly wasn't. Where do we see The Godfather Part 2's influence today, do you think?
Huge influence. I mean, it made Coppola arguably the most powerful man in Hollywood at that time. Just whatever he wanted to do next, that would give him whatever money he wanted. I think it showed everyone what a sequel could be. I think probably the first sequel that said, doesn't just have to be the same thing we've seen with little changes. It can be this instead. Cemented the status of Pacino as one of the greatest of his generation, really elevated De Niro. Like I said before, this probably only really known for Mean Streets, showed De Niro what he was. So yeah, its influence is absolutely monumental, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think The Godfather generally elevated the gangster genre to be considered high art, or rather a genre with potential for high art, which I don't think it was before. And that obviously led directly to films like Goodfellas, Pulp Fiction, Road to Perdition, loads more. Mm-hmm. And on TV, one of the great series in The Sopranos.
Yeah.
And Fat Tony of The Simpsons, obviously.
Yep.
And I think the narrative's influential too. The Godfather Part II isn't the first movie prequel ever. Do you know what that was, out of interest?
British film, though, isn't it?
If you don't know it, there's no way you're guessing it.
I read this. I can't remember the name of it.
Well, it was apparently a horror film called The Golem, How He Came into the World, from 1920.
Oh, 20. Right, I knew it was really early on, yeah.
Seen that one, Matt?
No.
Losing your touch?
It's on the list of 5 films I haven't seen.
He's got it on Laserdisc.
Yeah. Tonight's watch.
Yeah, but I think The Godfather Part II was the first huge mainstream sequel that was a prequel, and we see prequels being made all the time nowadays for the last 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly the same. I mean, like you said there, it stamps that Part 2 on things. It got a lot of Hollywood thinking, ooh, how many Part 2s can we make now? And it was just, First Blood Part 2. That's the first one that pops in my head.
Obviously.
But it had that, and I think it was really important the way it showed like the immigration and Italians on film and Italians in Hollywood and how they were portrayed in film. I think that was really important. And to show their rise and what they went through. And just immigrants in general, and just opened the window to that and showed people that side of the world that everyone was trying to ignore. And I think it just from that point of view, it gave a lot of minorities a lot of hope and a lot of power and a lot of sense of meaning, and that they're being focused on, and that it is such a successful film. And I think it did bring a lot of understanding from that point of view. We can't say in culture and Hollywood, but I also think it was incredibly important in highlighting these people who weren't necessarily understood as a culture and as a people. And I think that's more important than anything Hollywood could have brought.
Beautiful. So I don't think we're blowing any minds by saying we think The Godfather Part 2 had a positive effect on the Hollywood that followed.
Mm-hmm. No.
Part 3 couldn't maintain the level of the first two, but the trilogy as a whole, still one of the greats.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I would say.
From 1 and 2, yeah.
All the Right Movies ranking.
And that's it for The Godfather Part 2. We've been to Italy, Little Italy, Cuba, and back again. And now we're going to decide on our scores for the film.
Yeah.
So, Westy, you want to go first? Your summary and score for The Godfather Part 2, please.
It's one of them films where you just go, if you put this in your top 10, you're a wanker because it's too easy. You put it in your top 10. You put it in your top 5, you're just pretentious. You put it in your top 3, you don't really know about film and you've read total film and you just look at the top, or you've been on IMDb and just pick the top 4. It's just such an obvious film to put in because the craft, like we've spoken about, the acting, the direction, the writing, the cinematography, the sound design, the costume design, the production design, sound design, everything about it is top fucking draw. You can't get much better than it, really. I'd never tire of it. I never really think about, this scene, I don't want to watch this bit. I put it on and I want to watch it till the end. It's 3.5 hours long. I can't give it any more credit than that. It's 10 out of 10 all day. It's The Godfather Part 2. What else am I going to say? I'm on a movie podcast, and if I go, Godfather Part 2 is like 7 because some of it's a little bit slurry. So it's a 10.
In that voice, definitely.
Yeah. Of course. That's the kind of voice you'd need, though. Yeah, I prefer other things,
Yeah, it's a huge film in every way, in terms of scale, the ambition, the success, the influence, reputation, all of it. And I think it's a justified reputation. Following on from a landmark of American filmmaking in The Godfather, there was some serious pressure on Coppola, and he delivers, I think. A film that matches the first, and I think for a lot of people, surpasses it. Pacino at his best, De Niro at his best, a supporting cast sent by the gods in Diane Keaton, Robert Duvall, John Cazale, and more.
Yeah.
Very possibly the greatest sequel ever made, and very definitely 10 out of 10.
Of course.
And Matt, your summary and score for the film?
Yeah, I mean, huge film, so this is going to be a huge, long episode, so I'm not going to drag this part out either. It's just craft performances are peerless, and I think Michael's character arc and the writing of him, I think that's just the best character writing I've ever seen in a film, where he ends up considering where he began at the start of the first one. So for me, it's a perfect film. It's a flawless 10.
Nice.
We also asked our Twitter followers to rate and review the film, so some of their comments on The Godfather Part II. Anthony, at AnthonyMiles01, said, "A film I truly believe to be perfect. Almost everything about it elevates it in a comparison to the original. I don't think another film will ever impact me in the same way again. Al Pacino not getting Best Actor in 1975 is the biggest Oscar snub in history."
Wow. Yeah. So Anthony Corleone. Thought you didn't want to follow in his footsteps, Anthony.
Can you remember who beat him to Best Actor? I told you earlier on.
Yeah, Art Carney.
Art Carney. Well done.
Nice.
Next up, Johnny Five Speaks Jive at the Fouts said,
Okay.
"I go back and forth between 9 and 10. The first one's perfect. I could be wrong, but the second has plot points that aren't quite as lucid, but maybe I'm just thinking that because I saw the first one when I was too young to get it. I don't know. I love them both. Watch them once a year."
See, you can't even argue with yourself about it, can you?
Yeah.
I don't know if of course I do.
If there's one thing I can gather from that, it's that Johnny Five definitely does speak jive.
Very good.
And one of our patrons, James Barker, no relation, I don't think, said operatic, emotional, and unrivaled. Massive 10.
Huge.
Fair enough. Wise word from James.
Yeah. Definitely no relation. Oh, yeah. I was in junior high, dickhead.
And altogether, our Twitter followers ranked the film as, what do you think?
10.
Of course it was. Our highest ever score on Twitter.
Wow.
Edging out the first Godfather into second.
Right, well.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't say... All right. I thought I got 10 as well.
This got 9.39 and the first one got 9.38.
Fucking hell. Wow.
So that gives The Godfather Part 2 40 out of 40 in total, to the surprise of nobody.
Nobody. We could have done this at the start.
Yeah, it's going to be 40.
Yeah.
So that's everything we have on The Godfather Part 2. Hopefully you've been entertained and don't think we offered nothing, like Michael.
You wanted to get that back in there.
Nothing.
Hopefully you think we're smart. Not like people say.
I wouldn't bank on that.
We tried our best.
Next time, Matt, Westy and Luke are in the dark and grim 1990s to get into David Fincher's Fight Club.
Yeah.
Not sure how you're going to talk about that if you're not allowed to talk about it.
Whee!
So that'll be interesting.
2 hours of silence.
Dead air for 2 hours.
We'll just sit here punching ourselves in the face.
To find out more about becoming a patron, accessing our archive, bonus episodes, and supporting us in what we do, please visit patreon.com/alltherightmovies. Please subscribe, rate, and review us on iTunes and Apple Podcasts, as that helps us out. Only if you're going to leave a 5-star review, though, obviously.
Yeah. Obviously. Don't waste your time otherwise. No. Yeah.
Socially, you can keep up with All the Right Movies on Twitter, where we are at ATRightMovies. Best Twitter account in the world, I think.
Of course.
Easily.
YouTube is youtube.com/alltherightmovies. On Instagram and Threads, we are at @all_the_right_movies. You can find our movie group on Facebook to join in with all the movie chat and fun, and our website is alltherightmovies.com.
Lovely. More followers than US Steel. Probably have. Who the fuck wants to hear a tweet from them? We've got more steel, guys. Sound.
Me and Westy are off now to open our own olive oil business, and Matt's off to see if there's any tickets left for the Superman show.
We're bringing the oil to that later.
You don't want to know why.
You don't want to know why.
Do come back next time, though, for Fight Club.
Yes, please do, guys. Thank you so much for listening. It means a lot. Fredo Baggins. It's your burden. That's not the way I wanted it.
It's the way Gandalf wanted it.
Oh, Fredo Mount Doom. That was kind of funny, that.